May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahavah's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste. Osaya, Enikitawaya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, Guan, Kamsa, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Habarigane, Aqua Abba, Badaase, Itese, Jambo, Mimidi Kofi, in the Farakokatan Wewe, Boker To, Boker Tav, Grand Rising, greetings to all. Bakwartav, Barakala Shem Yahavah, Atnai Kofi, Kohelet Atzav the Christ, Mashalam Chi, Yahaslel Tesadak, At Alachem, Atban Alachem. Shalom, everybody. Peace. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate, love you. Thank you for your presence on this rising. We're thankful and grateful to everybody for joining us here one more again. Prayerfully, all is well with you and thine house. We are excited and grateful to get into the word one more again. As a reminder, just some quick reminders, not much in the way of announcements. But as a reminder, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, we will be back on the live session as usual in the evening on YouTube and on TikTok. However, in between now and then, besides some business stuff, of course, we do behind the scenes, in between now and then, we will be meeting up for day number 2 of what we're calling the 12 Myths of Christmas. It started last night, and we're going to be on every evening at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time on Zoom. We have the Zoom link that is on Patreon. I'll try to put it on different places, but if you can become a free member on Patreon, I didn't say you got to pay or anything. If you just go to Patreon, you should be able to see the videos that we'll be watching, and also you should be able to see the videos that we'll be watching. So we're going to do like a little mini watch party, and then we're going to talk about what we get out of that video. Went very well yesterday evening, and we're doing this not in celebration of Christmas, but to talk about the myths, and also to make sure that we know that during these times, whether you celebrate the holidays or not, there are many persons who actually kind of go through some withdrawal symptoms, or even just don't get to see their families and they feel certain ways about it. So we are trying our best to make sure that all of us are engaged with each other, especially during these times, and that we're reaching out one to another. Aman. So that'll be at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time. If you're able to join us, and all are invited, including the babies. We had some great participation, even from some questions from our babies as well last night. So we invite you to continue to have them come in, and we can join as a community and learn and grow as a community. Praise God. We'll be doing it every day through the 24th. The 24th will be the last evening. Outside of that, we'll be having a regular scheduled program, unless you guys hear otherwise. Also, too, please, ma'am, please, sir. Tomorrow we will have a SOC community meeting at about 2 p.m. Eastern New York time. It won't be that long. Probably even we'll do some stuff more so for fun than anything else. But we will be having a meeting then. So if you'd like to be able to participate, just look in your Google Calendar invite, or just watch for announcements to come through. Once again, try your best to see if you can look at social media or Google Calendar invites. I do my best to try and text as many persons as possible, but to be honest, when it's time for us to go, I'm kind of going off the dome with the text train. So I'm doing my best. There's a possibility we might miss you. So if you don't get something right before we're about to start, I'd say at least 30 minutes prior to, or something like that, please contact me, let me know, and we'll do our best to get that info to you. Aman. All righty. Shalom. Peace to all. Welcome also to. Thank you for allowing me, and thank you for inviting me to your live session, Brother Dwayne. It was like that. I saw a very peaceful yet stern yet masculine way of handling things, and I appreciate you for your example that you give. Praise Yahavah. All righty. So we thank you. By the way, I'm going to be putting something that'll probably be on Kofi_43. If you guys want to support it later on, I'll be putting a video out. One of the videos, if you guys notice, we've been doing really well for quite a while now, making sure we're putting content out in different platforms. I put a video out on Kofi_43, and it got taken down. Now you know what we're going through, the series we're going through. So I told you it's going to be a little rough as far as stuff. And so, TikTok will probably, and others on TikTok will probably say lies or do certain things, this and that. But they took something down, and it said, They didn't give me a reason, actually, which is very odd. But I was able to find out through somebody's comment on the video. Even though the video was taken down, I could see at least one comment before they took it down. And the comment basically was talking about um, taxing and stuff. And so I believe that TikTok is very interesting. I've never been taken down on TikTok before about taxes. So I'm gonna put a little something on there. If you recall, I made a little comment, something along the lines of, "It's very wicked for a system to even be taxing persons, let alone taxing the rich less than they do those who are considered to be poor, and putting in laws to make sure that the more money you make and the less effort you make, the less you should be taxed and stuff like that." But that's because to the victor goes the spoils. So I'm gonna put a little comment out to YouTube or to TikTok and be like, "Isn't it against your rules and regulations to not notify me?" And also to disallow something that doesn't, violate community guidelines. So I don't always ask for this, but if you guys would like, when that video gets posted, I hope to post it today. When that video gets posted, if you don't mind, just kind of putting a little, you know, even if it's just in the comment section, you can at TikTok or something, but just on the video, just kind of putting a little 2 cents in, even if it's like, "Hey, what's up with that?" If you agree with what I put in the video, by the way, you don't have to just do it. But once the video is put out, if you agree with it, I'd like y'all to just kind of give TikTok a reminder. I don't really deal with their legal stuff anymore because as much as they mess with us, we've kind of already dealt with the legal system enough. They kind of have to leave us alone. They still suppress stuff, which is fine. But there's certain, if y'all don't mind when we do that, I would greatly appreciate that. That being said, once again, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. Yahavah Elohim. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that is able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we appreciate everything that she does. I love you, babe. Thank you so much for all that you do behind the scenes. To the moderators, ministerial staff, secretary, SOC, Lottie Dottie, and everybody, all of you are helping each other, calling each other, talking to each other, lifting each other up, including lifting up your pastor. I love y'all to life, and thank you for everything that you do. All right, we're going to get ready to go into our series. We'll get ready to do our Bible pledge, of course, but we're going to get ready to get back into the series. We're on part 3 of our series that we've called Neely Fuller Code, and we're naming it that for reasons that you guys should know as far as the social media. Hopefully they don't get on us. The name of the book, if you want to, we've said this before, you can look up the name of the book, but really the easiest way to do this is look up Neely Fuller Jr. If you're Googling, you can just Google Neely Fuller Jr. His name is spelled Neely space Fuller space Jr. If you look up Neely Fuller Jr. and then put in PDF, the first thing that pops up should be what I'm using today. It does have a lot of advertisements, so we told you guys if you prefer, buy the book, get the audio book, whatever the case might be, so you don't have to go through it's a lot of advertisements you'll have to go through over and over again. So you might want to find another way, or you might want to even download the place that you're going to go to. I think it's called Scribed, and they're going to ask you to download the app. You're going to have to probably do like a download for free for 30 days, and then make sure that in your mind, as soon as we finish the series, if you don't want to stay with the app or whatever, make sure that you shut it down so that they don't keep taking money out your account. Or maybe you want to keep it to continue to go ahead and use what they're doing, right? But just want to give you guys, just let you guys know that's what I'll be using. So if you guys are saying, "Man, this is difficult to use," I'm gonna use the most difficult thing, so we can both, so that nobody can be like, "Hey, it's too difficult to use." I'm gonna use that for teaching purposes today. If you're coming out of that book, we need you to go. I believe. Hold on. We need you to go to page. We're gonna start on page 12. All right, and we're going to start on page 12 where it says some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. The name of the book, the entire name of the book, by the way, is the United Independent Compensatory Code slash system slash concept. Once again, the name of the book is entitled the United Independent Compensatory Code slash system slash concept. One more again. It's written by Neely, Neely, Neely Fuller Jr. The name of the book is entitled The United Independent Compensatory Code slash System slash Concept. All righty. And we're going to start once again on page 12 today, where it says some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. Now, as I've said before, this is a workbook and it's a really long book. We're only going to hit certain parts of this. We're only going to deal with this like somewhere in between a couple of weeks to the end of the year. And because at the beginning of the year, we're going to have a brand new series. So we want to make sure that we recognize what's going on. And so if you're going to read this, realize, we talked about this yesterday when we read the book and how the book's to be used. You're supposed to read this book at least one time the whole way through. So there might be things like, for example, we're skipping a lot. There he explains what compensation means, right? Through his prism. Now you should make sure this is not always going to line up everything with kingdom. So there are going to be some things I'm going to try my best to explain. But if you haven't read the part that has to deal with compensation, you are going to be missing a lot. But I'm going to skip through, right? And we're going to start at page 12 today. All righty. So just want to put that out there. But we're going once again to the United Independent Compensatory Code /system/concept by by Neely Fuller Jr. Neely, Neely Fuller Jr. We're going to start at page 12, where it says some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. All right. And while you're turning there, let's go ahead and say shalom and hello and welcome everybody who's on with us. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? How you doing, Sister Beck? How you doing, Sister Iska, Mavis, Dr. T, Jennifer, Darius? I believe I saw Keith on here earlier. Sister Michelle, Rodney, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. Okay, somebody on here named Sexy 77 Alley. Okay. I'll just call you Alley for now. How you doing, Kevin? Kevin 375. Pastor, Shalom, peace. How you doing? Come on in. I'm having problems scrolling today. Excuse me. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Bruder Charlie, Machiavelli, Joey, Sister Nadine, everybody come on in. Dwight Speed, Sister Greta, I believe I saw earlier, right? Marky, there you go. I saw Sister Greta. Michael, everybody come on in. Zahara, we appreciate love you all. Thank you for being on again. Hopefully your day is starting off well. If I miss your name on any platform, turn to my head, not to my heart. How you doing, Cultural Prospect? How you doing? Springtime, Big Brother Thomas, Nicole, Sister Judith, Sister Deja, everybody come on in. All righty. Welcome. So once again, if you don't have the book, once again, it's called what? I'm going to say it as many times as possible, but we got to go ahead and actually get into the book itself. So it's called, once again, The United Independent Compensatory Code /system/concept, written by Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. And I know there's 2 editions, so I'm not sure which one that you may have. The one that I have, we're going to start on page 12 today. Praise Yah. Of course, we'll go into the Bible as much as is needed and necessary, of course, to make sure that we still are continuing to keep the correct prism, but we're using this as a workbook for us of sorts. All right, Frank. Thank you. So, and if that's your way of saying hello, shalom, peace be upon you. How you doing? All righty. So here we go. We're going to go once again to page 12. Some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. That's where we're going to start. We'll go ahead and say our Bible pledge. If you're able to stand to your feet in reverence of Yahavah's word. Of course, I'm dropping stuff all over the place. Amen. If you're able to reverence Yahavah's word, we're thankful and grateful for you doing so with us, or whatever way you're able to reverence his word, whether it be standing, sitting, being quiet, just concentrating for a second. We'll say our Bible pledge, and then you can repeat after me. Our Bible pledge goes as follows. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this what I trust. For Yahavah is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Atsham Yahavah. Aman, which is in Yahavah's name, his authority. Amen. All righty. Once again, the United Independent Compensatory Code /system/concept is written by Neely Fuller Jr. We're going to be going to page 12. We're going to start where it says some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. All right. Now, and once again, you're going to have to read up. If you haven't already, feel free to try and read up when you can to see what the definition of compensation here is. It's quite a few pages dealing with compensation. All righty. So some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. So here's question. Question is, what is the statute of limitations on justice? How you doing, Miss Ladybug? Once again, here's the question. What is the statute of limitations on justice? Is there a statute of limitation on justice? Because what's the definition for justice? We got to ask the question now. What's the definition for justice? How is justice being defined for these next couple of weeks, at least, while we're going through this series? How are we defining justice? Let's make sure we're on the correct path and we're on the same page with this. How does one define justice? According to this prism that we're looking through. Anybody recall? There's two sides to this. There's a righteous side, there's an evil side, there's a wicked side. All right. The ones who need help the most get the most help. Nobody is mistreated for any reason. Okay. So we're supposed to be anti. This book is supposed to help us with a code so that we can become anti racism, white supremacy. Because remember, racism means a system based off of a race, a system based off of competition. So what competition are we talking about here? A system or a competition based upon what? That's right, white supremacy. So racism, white supremacy is what we're trying to get rid of. Therefore, if we have racism, white supremacy, the other side is what? The other side is being anti-racism, white supremacy. So justice, what we're working towards, what is just, is to get rid of a system that is seeped into every facet, every area of life. We talked about that yesterday. We talked about religious wise, right? We talked about war. We talked about sex. We've talked about like all these different things, your entertainment, your education, all these different things, right? Have to do your economics. They have to do with racism, white supremacy. That's the lens, that's the prism. It's not about whether you believe in racism, white supremacy, or that you're in racism, white supremacy. It is what it is. The example was given yesterday. This is a Neely Fuller Jr. example. He gives an example in some of his speeches and stuff, and even in his book, really, but he gives this example in speeches such as a lot of persons will say, I don't see racism, white supremacy, or I'm not in a racist place, or I'm not this or that. That sounds great. That sounds great. It really does. How you doing, Bo Classic? Like, it sounds very well educated to say. It sounds like it's something that you should say. Matter of fact, everybody should be able to say that they do not want racism and white supremacy to be part of what's going on, for sure. Most definitely. You should definitely want nothing to do with it. How you doing, Mr. Bonafide? You should want nothing to do with racism, white supremacy. However, the issue is that it's just like being in prison and saying I'm not a prisoner. You're absolutely right. First place you got to get free from in prison is being prisoned in your mind, right? You're absolutely right. But while being in prison, just because you're stop being imprisoned in your mind, it does not mean that you're still not in prison. You see, just like we are in the land of our captivity. Just because we have become uncaptivated in our mind doesn't mean that we don't have to take steps to make sure that we're not still in prison. Economically, you can say, I'm not a United States citizen anymore. I'm a non-citizen national. I'm a sovereign. I'm in the kingdom. I'm not in a corporation. All right, cool. I'm glad that you caught on to that. Now, that being said, what in your life are you doing to make sure that you are no longer in it? Right? Is everything you do still have to go through the prism of the country, or do you actually live as a sovereign? Right? How you doing, CBC? Right? And Deborah, and everybody coming on. If I miss your name on any of the platforms, please forgive me. Thank you for coming on and coming in with us. Right? This is soul consciousness, shalom, peace. So justice, get rid of a system that seeped into every. Yeah, amen, right? So justice is being anti, for this book, right? This prism, we're talking about being anti-racism, white supremacy. And we talked about this before, just to make sure that we say this again. Somebody's probably still going to lie on us and tell you that we're reverse racist, or we're saying hate speech or whatever. But just to make this clear, and it was even made clear in this book, we are not here to try to say that every white person is evil. Matter of fact, if you've been with us longer than us, you know that there's no such thing as a white person, because the color white doesn't exist. The color white is actually not a color. White is actually referred to something that is clear. The whiter something it is, the less color it has. So if you can't see through a person, right, they're not white. Right? A white blood cell, look it up under a microscope, it's clear. White polar bear fur, look it up under a microscope, it's clear. White snow, look it up under a microscope, it's clear. Okay? So we're not referring to, right? We're not referring to a white person as in color. We're talking about a state of mind or a state of being or something that somebody came up with to manipulate. Remember those in white supremacy, the white supremacist wants other so-called white persons to believe that they're white, but the true so-called white persons are really just a few. They're not even a dime a dozen. They're not 1 out of 100. They're not 1 out of 1,000. They're not 1 out of a millennia. The real white persons who control all this stuff, how 80% of your money is controlled by less than 20% of your population, right? That's when you start getting into who's really what. And even in that, there's layers on that, right? You might think that the basketball player who got paid $60-something million for 1 year on a contract is crazy wealthy, right? Until you realize that there's somebody who pays that person's checks. You see, there's levels, right? You might think that Trump is rich and all that until you realize somebody's got to tell Trump what to do. He gets told less what to do because of how much money he makes, but he still got persons that say you can't do, you got to do blah, blah. And if you act up, we'll go ahead and embarrass you in front of everybody. You see, like there's levels to it. There's levels, right? So you must recognize that if you're talking about white supremacy, you're talking about a whole nother level. And then even when you get to that level, there's stuff that's there, right? Like we don't even think about religion, something that I didn't even go into the other day or yesterday, whenever it was. We were talking, yesterday when we were talking about how white supremacy has gone into religion. You have to even recognize persons such as Oral Roberts. And I forget who the other person was. There were two big cats. There was Oral Roberts, who's the guy who basically made Christian nationalism and started making it about, if you give me your money, then you'll be blessed. He's kind of the OG of that. There were some persons doing that to a certain degree, but he kind of the OG as far as taking television and taking it to the next level. Many persons bow down at the feet of Oral Roberts, but he's very problematic in many different ways. That being said, though, right, I got respect for him on a certain degree, but there's another cat. I wish I could recall his name. It'll pop up if we need it. But there's another cat who was around the same time. Now, Oral Roberts ended up winning out because he got on television and stuff. But there was another guy who came up, and he was somebody who basically got into this whole thing of what they call charismatic, right? You guys know about charismatic church. If you don't, well, not Jimmy Swaggart. It was somebody else. Jimmy Swaggart's around the same time. But it was another cat. And he actually, around the same time, starts getting into things or whatever, and ends up basically learning what was our culture. And so it sees the whole black church thing or whatever. And not Billy Graham. Billy Graham kind of sort of did it in a way too, to where all these black folk were coming to him and stuff like that too. And no shade on him, but if you want to know what Billy Graham, part of what he stood for, go and research Billy Graham's son. We do this weird, and I know we have to. I decompartmentalize or compartmentalize all the time myself. We have to decompartmentalize, but I compartmentalize myself. Like when we listen to this music and stuff, we know that some of the lyrics is off, but we still kind of, that's all that we have, right? So I get it. I'm not throwing shade on anybody, but if you look at Billy Graham's son, you'll find out a whole bunch of stuff that you're like, oh, Billy was on one. Except persons were intermarrying before the 1700s. Pure whites came and classified in persons in the 1800s. Well, even a little before. Well, yeah, even before that, because you got to go back to the doctrine of discovery, right? Even the doctrine of discovery starts in 1452, wasn't made official till 1493. After Christopher Columbus in 1492 sails the ocean blue, and in 1491, the last Moorish king loses, and they start looking for Negroes officially in Spain. They were already looking for them and trading for them in Portugal. And if you know what a Negro is, right? Not just black, not just African, but what a Negro is, you know who they were looking for, right? But if you look at who the other guy is, I can't recall his name, but he around the same time is starting to get into charismatic preaching, right? Or doing charismatic stuff. Basically, when we catch the Holy Ghost in church, they basically caught on to that. And they saw, no, not Rod Parsley. I promise, it's like a name I was not familiar with at all. But if somebody says it, I'll probably catch it. But he starts around the same time, and when he starts, he basically learns about the charismatic preaching, stuff like that. He starts getting popular too, but they went in two different ways. Or Roberts goes the route of going on television. He actually was then the same cat I'm talking about, who was opposite Oral Roberts. He ends up getting baptized, rebaptized, if you will, right? But he gets baptized by the Grand Wizard of the KKK, of the Ku Klux Klan. Yeah, and he gets baptized by the Grand Wizard, and then the Grand Wizard sends him to churches all over the South to teach them how to speak in tongues and to give the doctrine of predestination. Same doctrine that was brought over, right, by Protestantism, but really by separatists of Protestantism. That's what they were called, separatists. You call them today Puritans, and they came over with that same doctrine over, and that's what they used on the natives, or they gave themselves the mindset that it was okay to do what they did to native persons. How you doing, King D252? And shalom to you. Is it Lamont? I think I missed the name, but Lamont, right? So there's this whole thing. A lot of persons don't even recognize, like when you got those Bibles in your hotel rooms. Remember the red Bibles used to get in there, the Gideon Bible, I believe it is, or the Gideons, or whatever it was called. When you get that Bible still in a lot of hotel rooms to this day, that was KKK. That was their Bible. So when you saw those things, how you doing, Minister Shante? Roy Davis sounds familiar. I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I'll research it again. I'll try to bring it back. I'll try to run it back a little later. I apologize for not having that name readily available. All right, but we don't recognize racism, white supremacy is just about everywhere. When you went into a hotel room, so if somebody's buying the Bible from a KKK member, that means your business runs with them. Right. This is why we had to have stuff like a green book. So you see, we don't recognize these things. We don't talk about these things, and we try to act like, oh no, it's not in our life. And my economics, I don't run into anybody racist or whatever. And I don't look. The United States of America in its Constitution says that if you're a native, as a matter of fact, if you put not this is not all Constitution. Some of this is your Declaration of Independence. But if you are a United States citizen or even sovereign and you know the Constitution, right? If you learn your Constitution that's supposed to be able to guide you and govern you and even be able to make sure it protects your rights, then guess what? It says in there that you if you are a native, you are a savage. Sauvage en français talks about you being wild. We even gave you some stuff in one of the series we were doing about, if you look up the term for savage and where it comes from and stuff, you'll begin to realize, oh, it means somebody who lives in the woods, wild in the wilderness. Wilderness means that, in other words, you don't live in our, what we call civilization, right? So it says in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution, it talks about the savage and it talks about the bond. Who is the bond? The bond is the slave, right? A bond is a slave. Stocks and bonds. The stock is the person. The bond means that they're in prison, right? So that's why on your birth certificate, you are the stock. It puts that all caps fake person on there, and then it has a bond around it. It's supposed to be representative. Same thing that they would have done when they got you in chattel slavery. Right? When you were coming into Massachusetts, when you were coming into North Carolina, South Carolina, when you were coming in to Florida, when you were coming into Louisiana, right? When you were coming into ports in these places, when you were coming into Alabama, when you were coming into Texas. Remember, Texas, when you had Juneteenth, which we celebrate here, when Juneteenth happens, and the slave owners leave, they leave with slaves as well, and they went down to Brazil. That's why in Brazil they still have Confederate flags that pop up, and once a year they have a big huge shindig down there, and they have a great time, and they talk about Confederacy, and they can't stand you. That's one of the reasons why you don't see black persons like that on Brazilian television still like that. Right, we might not be aware of this stuff, but it's there. It's intrusive. It's been fed. It's seeped into every category of your life. As much as we want to pretend that this isn't there, it's there. As much as we want to act like this is not a regular issue, it is a regular issue because every day you wake up to it, it's there. Right. So just because don't fall for this thing. Well, technology. Everybody has phones now. There were black houses. Matter of fact, there were more black houses in segregation than there was in integration. You integrated to make sure you got rid of the black houses. It was easier to redline when everybody's under your jurisdiction, right? There were more businesses during segregation. It's easier to get rid of the black businesses when everybody's under the same thing. We weren't asking for AA, but we had our own. We were asking to be treated like human beings, but after a while, it's like, shoot, well, we live well by ourselves. Tulsa, Oklahoma was doing fine until they started letting persons see what they were doing. The next thing you know, they got to get bombed. They did it again. Let persons find out about it. They got bombed. They came back again and got bombed. It's in every area of your life. How many women in the Carolinas? How many of our women in Alabama? How many of our women in Florida? How many of our women in Mississippi? How many of our women in Oklahoma? How many of our women in Texas who didn't know how to read and write and would sign X's and stuff that they didn't know we were signing to? And then when their children got to be of a certain age, their female children, they made sure that their female children couldn't have babies. Some of them still alive today. You can listen to them tell their story of how they were never given a chance to give birth. Arkansas, yeah, we can keep on. I mean, really, I'm just going through southern ones because y'all know the southern ones. We can talk about New York too, and Maine. I mean, we don't ever talk about Maine. Maine is wild, right? What about Illinois? What about Indiana? What about Kentucky? I mean, just in case you feel left out, what about Oregon? You're on the West Coast. What about Oregon? What about Cali? Right? I mean, the horror stories go on and on and on, right? So there's a lot of stuff that goes all over the place, right? You guys know about Massachusetts, Boston, one of the worst places. Bill Russell left Boston. When he left, he never wanted to live there again. He didn't come back for years. It was years, decades before he came back to Boston, and y'all saw him on the side. Of course, Utah. So I can go, I mean, basically everywhere. And that's just in the United States of America. We could obviously go. There's places in Mexico you don't want no part of, right? There's obviously places in Canada, as much as they try to dress everything up. Look at the history of the children that were torn away from their parents and stuff like that, and were forced to do things the way white persons said that they had to do, et cetera, right? So-called white persons. So we don't want to, we have to get over this thing where we try to pretend that we're not seeing things every day. It's very difficult. I get it. Because like I'm type of person, because you have this knowledge, I'm type of person where you go and you're just trying to enjoy a day with your family and you see this little shack and the shack looks old and you see certain things around the shack and you see it's closed off, nobody can go in, and they still have this shack up, and you say to yourself, and you go, wait a minute, we're on a plantation, aren't we? And you start looking around and they don't call it a plantation, they say it's a topiary garden. And they say, there's this nice old house. It's like 300 years old. Do you want to see how the persons who owned this house lived? And you go inside and it's usually smaller. You think it's going to be like a mansion because your idea of mansion is something different than what mansion means. But you look inside the house and you're like, oh man, it's small, but it's quaint and it's really nice. And you got all this stuff and it doesn't click to you. That's Master's house. Right? Because in our mind, and look, I'm not saying you can't enjoy where you are, but we've been taught that we shouldn't tell the truth about it. Once again, when you go to see a movie, you have something called suspension of disbelief, right? When you go to see a movie, you have something that's called suspension of disbelief. What is suspension of disbelief? Suspension of disbelief, it means that if I'm going to watch a movie, they've done studies and they know that the average person, so you could be above average time, you could be below average time, but the average person, is, if they're going to see a movie, they're going within the first 33 seconds, they know that you're going to go ahead and check out, right? As far as mentally, in order for you to watch Star Wars, you have to believe that somebody can reach out with the force and choke that person, right? In order for you to watch, right? In order for you to watch Star Trek, you have to believe that somebody can travel faster than tachyon particles can, right? In order for you to watch a boxing, watch Creed, you have to believe that Michael B. Jordan really can get in the ring and mess with somebody who's really a champion boxer. In order for you to watch Iron Man, you have to believe that that Robert Downey Jr. is actually this super rich person. So you have to check out in order to make it make sense. How you doing, Boot Flow? Thank you for the love too, right? You have to make that stuff make sense. How you doing, Brother Joseph? How you doing, Young Denzi? So in order for these things to happen and to work out, for you to be caught up in it, you have to suspend disbelief. And so for a lot of persons, in order for you to go through this system, no matter how much you know about it, you have something in your mind that's trying to click off, because it's a survival mechanism. But we're not trying to survive, we're trying to thrive. We're not teaching survival, we're teaching thrival, right? And so if you're going to thrive, you must get to a place to where you can, because in order for you to suspend disbelief, you have to be in a place called cognitive dissonance. Biblically, you would call it being double-minded. You have to click out of it. You have to click out of this thing where you're telling yourself a lie. right? It doesn't mean you have to be mean. It doesn't have to mean you have to walk around angry all day, right? It means that it's all right for you to be able to say, I know what that is. And so when somebody tells you see racism in everything, you can't tell me that a country that's based off of racism is not something I should see in everything. You didn't even, right? Abraham Lincoln, who was Melungeon, that means he was part white, he was part black, and he was part black native, right? Well, Guam, one love. How you doing, Rasta Queen? Right? If you see what I'm saying? You can't. I can't look at Abraham Lincoln and realize he didn't even love his own persons. He did more damage towards natives probably than any other president, including Andrew Jackson. We just don't deny what Andrew Jackson did. In 1858, Abraham Lincoln wrote and said, hey, please, you guys know I'm running for president, but don't trip. Please don't secede. I'm not coming to go ahead. I think that black persons really are dumb too. That's what he said. Look up what he wrote. That's not exactly what he said. Go look at what he's quoted as writing. It's not that different. You see what I'm saying? So we have to recognize that just because like it doesn't have to rule over our life. I don't have to be mad about it. I don't have to be frustrated. I can find ways to separate from the system. One of the reasons why we should get out of the system as much as possible. I can separate from the system. However, beloved, don't get it twisted. You're still dealing with the system. That's why you're in the system, but not of it. I don't have to be of your system, but I must recognize I'm still in it. Until Yahavah comes back, if that's what you so desire, until he come back, until the end of the system, until the end of the world, however you want to look at how racism and white supremacy is going to end, until it ends, you're in it, but not of it. That's why it starts in the mind, right? So somebody who's telling you, I don't see racism in everything, you got to be careful, right? This is how you get powerful. Until you create an environment that is racism free, and until you create persons to talk to. So this is an environment. Who's in your environment? Who do you talk to? Who's in your environment? Who you buying from? What's in your environment? Is it real food? You know, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. We were going, or yesterday when we went out, we were going to the gym, right? And or whether the YMCA, whatever. We were going to the gym and letting Solomon run around, get some stuff out of him, sign him up for some classes and stuff like that, etc. And when we went over there, you know, on our way, we were talking about food. And I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna pick up some food on the way there. You know, I'm not trying to buy, you know, stuff that's expensive, whatever. I'll just go ahead and go to this grocery store real quick, and I know that I can get some food cheaper there than where I would, even if it's coming from this place, whatever. And we were talking about, we were like, well, should we get it here or should we get it where we're going? And where we were at the time, how you doing, Yanni? Where we were was a place to where the food was. Where we were was a place to where the food was cheap, or you know, not cheap, but it's a poor neighborhood, right? It's a kind of poor neighborhood where we were, and so we were like, if we buy it here, it's actually more expensive here. But if we go there, and then we kind of looked at each other and do the same thing, we know the answer, but we ask the question, why is that? And then of course we start talking, and we're like, yeah, we already know, right? Because it's easier. Even though persons have more money, you would think it'd be more expensive there. But the way the system is designed, the more money you have, the easier it is to have access to food that's natural and therefore better for your body. But if you are poor, it's harder, right? We talked, you know, I forget what's the term that they use when you're on is it a food desert? Food desert, right? And if you're in a poor neighborhood, you already know where you going to get food. Chinese joint where they make a version of your food, and they won't eat the food that they give to you, right? Where you going to get your food? You got your stamps. As you go somewhere, you go to the corner store and you getting stuff that's way too expensive, $4 for a can of this, and $5 for some stuff you shouldn't be eating, like Spam and stuff like that. And you got to go ahead and try and get whatever you can out of there. But if you get on that bus and you travel and spend money you don't have, you know, and you willing to carry all them groceries back or get that cart, you know, the fold out cart, right? A lot of y'all know about the fold out cart, and you get the fold out cart, you ready to carry all these groceries and bags and stuff back. Well, hey, I mean, you can probably get some better stuff, but you gotta go through stuff. Persons that don't have, they don't eat. Persons that have, they eat. And persons that don't have, if they do eat, it's always going to be stuff that's not great for you. Persons with money ain't sitting up here telling you about how they grew up on bologna sandwiches, which are a health hazard. And just because as a child you were younger and your system wasn't as jacked, and so you could handle it, And then you try to eat that same stuff when you get older, your body can't handle it anymore because you've been poisoning your body the whole time. How you doing, Justice? All right. How you doing, Well Connected? How you doing, Brother Warren? Right? Yeah, with no pork. Yeah, but I'm just saying a lot of persons were raised on that, right? And thought that it was righteous. A lot of persons were raised on different things and thought it was all right. You were raised on things that even cause autism and cause you to be on the spectrum. Praise Yah, though, if you ate your way in, you can eat your way out. And I'm sorry, did I say shalom, Sister Renee? I don't think I did. Thank you for being on. All right. You said, what are my thoughts on marrying persons that are your oppressor? Well, we can talk about that. I don't really like to give my thoughts. I don't like to give opinion. I don't like to opine. So I like to give contextual facts. How you doing, Shabbos? So I'm coming from a cultural perspective, even including in this book that we're using. Once again, the book that we're going to be coming out of today, we're about to start on page 12, I promise. It's called the United Compensatory Code / System. I'm sorry, the United Independent Compensatory Code / System / Concept. And it's written by Neely, Neely, Neely Fuller Jr. But if we're talking about things today, as far as our oppressors, so I'm coming through a cultural prism, right? I'm not here to do as much it probably seems like and I am pro-Black. I am Afrocentric, of course. I am Hashada Al, of course. I would say, but I'm not here doing the white means evil, Black means righteous, right? But what I'm trying to talk about is the system to where certain so-called white persons are always supposed to be at the top. Right? White supremacy doesn't mean that the white person is supreme because they're white. Racism, white supremacy means racism. Ism means system. So ism is a system based off of race. Competition. What competition is that system based off of? White supremacy. So certain persons are supposed to be up top. We talked about that yesterday and on Tuesday when we talked about the overseer. The overseer lived worse than the slave. But he was willing to live worse than the slave because somebody told him he could whip the slave because he was white. So even they have to be tricked. Even if you look at the Willie Lynch letter, it says that the family, that the person who is the master is supposed to make sure that he tricks his family, that he tricks his children, and that he tricks anybody who works for him. Because it doesn't work unless everybody's in on it. Even the person who is being oppressed has to be in on it. So I want to make sure we said that yesterday. Right? How you doing, Minister Stephen? Shalom. We made it a point to say that they're all yesterday. Like, hey, if you're coming in here with the mindset that I'm ready to go to town on just whiteness, right? Remember, whiteness is made up. And if white persons could recognize that, then they would get that. And right? Like a lot of stuff would disappear if all persons realize that white is not a color. And that if it wasn't for a pope long time ago trying to get you to say, go back to the holy lands that belong to us, because we as Christians are the actual Israel. And that's where y'all got this thing where it doesn't matter, what family you're from or whatever, just be under Christianity. Then that's where you got that from. Right? How you doing, Badak? Right. So that's where you got that from. But that being said, I always say it like this because it doesn't matter if you okay. Can I be real? I won't say doesn't matter if you marry a Black or white woman or Asian woman or whatever you want to describe somebody as, Spanish woman, which a lot of them are the ones you're thinking of as Spanish. You're not thinking of Spain. You're usually thinking of somebody who's Black or Latino or Latina, right? We don't do the Latine thing here, but Latina, right? But in all that, right? And all that, how you doing, Joseph? And all those things going on, I always say it's culture first. And if you don't know culture or the person doesn't know culture, you're going to have a tough time. So I don't care in that sense. I don't care if it's Black or white. Do you know what a wife is? See, there's code, even in code for us. Now, I'm coming from a different code culturally, right? I'm coming from a different type of scriptural code, right? I'm about an original scriptural code, not something that's been changed over millennia, right? But in our code, that I live in within my culture, whether it be Shwe, whether it be Ashanti, whether it be Ashanti Shwe, whether it be, whether it be Ethiopic, whether it be Kush, whether it be Kemetic, whether it be Hashida, whether it be Anakitwayach, whether it be Cherokee, et cetera, right? The culture that I come from is one that says that a wife is already trained to be a wife from birth and she keeps culture, and a husband is one who's born as a husband and they keep culture. And so many persons, we don't know what a wife is because you don't have a cultural reference point. So when you talk about the oppressor, right, If you talk about she's an oppressor because she's white, well, then let's go through the list. Let's check it out. Is she a feminist? Because you can be a black wife and be a feminist. And feminism, not feminism per se, but the feminist movement is based off of Gloria Steinem, who worked for the CIA, especially if in the United States of America. So if you're in part of the feminist movement that's CIA, well, you a snitch. Even if you don't want to be, that's what you called to be. That's what you've been invited to. Remember, Gloria Steinem gets a little 16-year-old girl, black girl, who ain't had no real relationships, and gets her to write a book based off of how black men are just as culpable for Eurocentric patriarchy as white men are. And that doesn't even make sense. So if you're on that path, you see what I'm saying? Like if you're going to say, oh, well, the oppressor, well, is your black white part of the oppressive thing? Just like there's a lot of men out here talking about they red pill brothers, and these, I'll say jokers. I was about to say N words. Y'all forgive me, right? But they be acting like it. These jokers out here, these so-called brothers who ain't got no money, but talking about how they're red pill and how women should bow down to them, and they can't take care of themselves, let alone take care of a woman, let alone know what it is to be a husband. And will say so many different things about being disciplined, but they can't be disciplined with what's between their legs. They want a wife that's chaste, and they can't be chaste themselves. They say, you got persons out here talking about you should sleep with 50 women, right? Fools out here talking about sleep with 50 women. That's 50 soul ties. At least they say sleep with at least 50 women, and then you'll be able to know what it is that you want. No, be raised as a husband and know what a wife is, and therefore he who finds a wife, not finds a woman, he who finds a wife, not finds a girlfriend. He who finds a wife, not a hole in the ground that you can just stick your thing in. Because if that's what you're looking for, just make a hole in the ground or get a watermelon to do some of that freaky stuff y'all be doing with flashlights and all that stuff. Or use your hand when you watching that stuff that you ain't supposed to be watching anyway, and you'll be straight. If that's all you're looking for, you can get that just about anywhere. You don't need a woman for that, right? But if you're looking for a wife, then yeah, you should be able to be held accountable for securing her and protecting her. And then whatever secures and protects her, that's what she perceives as love. And when she gets that, then she gives you something called submission, not submitted to you as a man, submitted to a mission. You should be more in love with your mission than you are with your wife, at least at first. Because when you find your mission, you should be in your work. And when you find your wife, you should find your wife while you're in your mission. And you should be able to go, my mission is to do thus and such. And so since my mission is oriented in this manner, right, focus and face and going in this manner, since that's my mission is to do this, well, then guess what? If this is my mission to go this direction, right, this should be your mindset. If this is my mission to go in this direction, then my wife should be in the direction that I'm going already when I meet her. So we go too much into the black, white, light skin, this and that. As she fine, what her curves look like, has she had surgeries, this and that. And I can talk on some of that, and some of that is even white supremacy, racism, white supremacy. Even some of that is there. But that being said, a lot of us don't even have the mindset. What is a wife? What culturally for us is the standard for wife? And many of you don't have one, and many of you are arguing without one. You're arguing a position that doesn't even exist. Many of you have argued yourself to a point to where no woman will ever be able to be a wife in your eyes because you don't have a standard. When you have a standard, you know what you're looking for. So I don't even believe that a lot of men have the ability to be able to even find a wife as far as what it is, because you don't have a standard. And the standard that you do come across is usually one that came from your oppressor anyways. Now that's the problem. Have a standard that's not from your oppressor, because that means that you're marrying into oppression. Then you get upset when your wife shows where she's not a wife, she's a girl that you just happen to go with or whatever, and go steady with long enough, and then said, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. But when you find a wife finally, supposedly, you find somebody who's oppressive. You don't like the way that she talks, it's oppressive. You don't like the way that she money grabs, it's oppressive. Well, that's because you don't have a standard for wife. If your standard for wife comes from the oppressor, then you should expect an oppressive wife. And sisters, you ain't off the hook in that either, because guess what? If you keep talking about you want a husband, but you don't have a proper standard, but when you get a husband that's oppressive, you shouldn't be upset, because that's what you chose to be with. You know, there's some sisters out there that will take a whole bunch of stuff off of a man that you wouldn't take off of nobody else. Now, I get it. He's your husband, so maybe there are some things you should take off him, but he should be qualified for that position. If you don't have a standard for a husband, if you don't have a cultural standard and have a protective community that's there to make sure that, hey, all of our husbands are supposed to be this, all of our wives are supposed to be this, all of our children are supposed to be this, all of you are supposed to be this, because you also know too, when you have a husband and a wife, you got to gird them up. See, so wives, you're not supposed to be in submission. You're supposed to be in submission. And if he's submitted to a mission, you got to figure out if that's a mission that you even think that you're qualified to help with, because you are a multiplier. And if you get with a husband and he's doing very well in this mission, right? Especially if it's Yahavah's mission, but you get with a husband and he's already doing well in his mission, and you come through and then you try to go against it rather than multiply it, then yes, he should have a problem with you. Not with himself, even though he should be accountable for things dealing with self, but he should have an issue with you, right? When I met Elder Alma, before we went out, before we did all this stuff, before we did any of that, right? Before we even started hanging out, because we didn't really date like that, but before we started hanging out, doing all this stuff, because we don't, in our culture, I don't really do dating, right? But we, before we did any of that, we had to have a conversation, several. It had to be like, hey, this is where I'm going. This is where I'm headed. I don't even comprehend all the stuff that I'm doing. I know Holy Ghost is like plucking me in this. I've had a dream since I was this young to do this. I come with so-called baggage. Not only just some of the baggage that a man comes with, but I come with some stuff as far as I'm still dealing with a little depression. I come with some stuff where I got 3 babies already. I got, and technically, a fourth, even though not sure if whatever is mine, but blah blah. Like, this is where I'm coming from. I was in a marriage already, blah blah. Like, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I'm trying to do. Do you still see anointing on me? Right now that you've seen it, do you believe that I have the ability to go in a direction? Do you believe that the vision that I have can come forth and stuff like that? And she spoke that, and then also too on her side, hey, where are you going? She has this, she has that, she's got this issue, blah blah. These are the things she's going. These are things that she needs to be provided. Hey, even though I was just coming off the street at that time, she's like, hey, I see it in you. I'll help. I'll even support you to a certain degree. But we even talked about that. You got it, but so many years, bro. I'm just letting you know, because I'm not the type of sister to where, even if you're doing everything in righteousness and for the kingdom, blah, blah, I'm just being honest. I'm the type of sister. I need to be protected. I need to be taken care of. I need to know that I'm not out here by myself. So I'm gonna give you that. Matter of fact, she did a lot of stuff, tried to help me with the job stuff, blah blah. And she was the one that was like, "Yo, I don't think the job thing's for you, because you doing the work, you putting an effort, but it's not really for you." But it seems like whenever you do things for the kingdom, whenever you do things for community, whenever you do things to teach, that seems to blow up. So hey, let's go ahead and make that happen. What's the timeline? What's the vision? Blah blah. And we worked it out. You see, so I'm not one to tell you that even like being a see the oppressor is out here, while the oppressor has all this stuff in place and has this tie down a generation, blah blah. What the oppressor is not telling us is that if you're gonna get with a husband, at least where we are today, you might have to help that husband while he's on his way to his vision. You're gonna help to multiply, and he has to have the mindset to protect you while you're helping him to multiply. And then when he gets to a place to where he's actually able to take care of you the way that you desire, you got to make sure all this stuff is talked about, considered. There's even private contracts instead of you getting married publicly and through the government and all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of different stuff that you can do to ensure, but we don't have a mindset of that, to where our people are right now. We're not 100% where we need to be. What are both husband and wife willing to do and put aside to help each other to get to a higher level? Right. So I won't go too much deeper into that, but like I said, long story short, our problem with marriage, as much as we want to make it white versus black and don't marry white persons and blah blah and stuff like that, that's not even really where we are. Amen. Focus on the concerning with you to be found. Yeah. Yeah. That we're not even in a place right now as a people in the land of our captivity. We still think in captivated thoughts. We've been captivated by racism, white supremacy. And so even when persons we talk about this all the time, your HBCUs were not started by us. So everybody who's spending so much time, go to the HBCU, go down to Georgia, go to DC, go over to Colorado, go over to Cali and get in that one, that's not even yours. You're not being taught you, and you're not being taught by you. That's more of a problem than what color they are. Just being honest, right? Especially even the book told us this yesterday. Don't get it twisted. There's some that y'all would think are white, and then if you actually got to know them, you find out that they black. So, and everybody came from the same person ultimately, but it's more about your culture. It's more about your culture than it is anything else. Because if you start, because if we're not careful and we do the same thing the system does, that's where colorism comes out of. Well, nobody white. So then, okay, so if you see a light-skinned girl that looks just about white, is she less a wife than the dark-skinned girl? I mean, we know we've done it the other way, but it happens both ways. There's a lot of places the dark-skinned girl ain't as beautiful as the light-skinned girl. We gonna do that too? Like, where's the line? We got to make sure we have a cultural reference point and that we're faithful to it. Okay. You look at me, if you saw my mother, she passed for white. And if you look at her mother, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, I'd say this all the time, but my eyes, when I look at a younger picture of her and I see a younger picture of the queen, to me, they look identical. And that grandmother, that woman who I'm talking about, she is the one that's from Jamaica, right? Not white woman from Jamaica, but obviously mixed. And some things probably happened to her persons before her to where, even though, there were things that were done forcibly to generations before her to get her to be that color. And you might not see it on me. Now that I say that, maybe you even see some features that you might see, but you might not see it on me. But look at my brother and my sister. You'd be like, oh, okay, that y'all are related. Yeah. Y'all are brother and sister. Yeah. You see where I come from. You see my siblings. you know, how you doing, Sister Nadine? You said same here. Mama light bright. Don't even look like she should be your mom. Yeah. Matter of fact, I would push my mother was in a wheelchair. I would push my mother around in the wheelchair, and nobody could believe that I was her son. Nobody. She would get upset. Everybody would say, she looks like you. They look like her. And she would be so upset. She'd be like, he looks like me. He looks like me. Nobody would ever say, because my father's dark. It's very interesting too. When I gain weight, I look more like my father. When I lose weight, I look more like my mother. It's a very interesting thing. I don't know where that why that happens for me. But anyways, so yeah. So before we get, and we're gonna go ahead and get into this book. Let's go to page 12. But yeah, before we get into some of that stuff, we have to first even figure out what is a wife, what is a husband, what is the cultural reference point. Con, you saw where I came. Yeah. Yeah. All right. What's the cultural reference point? You said you passed. It took 30 years to accept yourself. Yeah. And by the way, there's some persons that pass that use it to their advantage. So don't even be mad for some people that pass. As long as they're using it to your advantage, I say use it. My mother got us into some stuff that we probably shouldn't have got into. And when they saw her son, it was like, but it's too late then. Hey, you got to give me the opportunity now. You already signed up. We already paid. Thank you. Might not let me in again. And I got to have to prove myself better than everybody else that you see. Right. Once I get in, I got to do twice as much to get half as much. But hey, once I'm in the door, thank you, mama. And she was the same mama while passing that would tell me I didn't get it when I was younger, but she knew what was up. She married her husband, and her husband's family didn't like her because of the color of her skin, and her family didn't like him because of the color of his skin. And until I was born, both grandmothers didn't really talk to their daughter-in-laws or their son-in-laws. And then all of a sudden, when I was born, for the first time, they started talking with each other. And literally, in my eyes, looked like the Queen of England, right? Grandmother. In my eyes, she did nothing but love me and dote upon me from the day I was born, and became best friends with my father from that point on. How you doing, Auntie Marion? Still praying for you. Hopefully things are getting better. If y'all don't mind lifting up Auntie or Sister Marion in prayer, if you don't mind. Amen. I won't say for why, because I haven't been given permission, but we can always pray for you. But yeah, so I literally, when persons think I'm just making stuff up or I don't know about things that you don't know about mixed race, but I'm like, whatever y'all call a mixed race, I promise you, I was a dude that never fit in. I promise you, I was the guy who was skateboarding and wasn't cool enough, and then he would go to wear, sagging his pants, and that wasn't cool enough, and I could cross everybody up at the same time. I could go and I could play, lacrosse, stuff like that if I wanted. I'm saying God, it was listening to Smashing Pumpkins and Korn and Limp Bizkit, and at the same time was quoting Biggie and Pac and all that stuff. I'm that dude that grew up in confusion, trying to find out who he was, and whatever I wanted to be, whatever I thought I was, even naturally, it was always stepped upon. You hear what I'm saying? So all of us, right? That colorism thing is real. So I get it. I get it from both sides. I see what it was. I see what it was where literally, literally like lost family members or persons that I thought we were cool with. And then I got to a certain age and we weren't talking to them anymore. Come to find out when my mom got sick, family members were like, because y'all married to each other, we ain't helping y'all. And we didn't even need their help. My father had the game on lock as far as financial literacy. So we didn't even need their help by then. But so I came from a place to where I didn't even know why. My father never told me. He kept trying to push it. He kept trying to get me to hang out with friends and family. I got in the military, and after I got out the military, came back to the mainland. When I came back to the mainland, was invited back by one of the persons who wasn't talking to us, and then talked to some cousins who I grew up with, like brother and sister, and cried real tears because I had to tell them, I was like, I thought y'all hated me, and they were like, no. No, we never. But because everybody was at such odds and ends. See, and that's the goal of the enemy. Is like we should have grown up still as like I didn't. I'm the oldest, but the way I grew up, I had an older brother and sister. As far as I was concerned, I called them cousin and cousin, but they were my brother and sister. And so when I didn't see them for a while, right? Matter of fact, I won't say I was crushing or anything like that. But when I went out with when I was looking for a girl for a long time, I was looking for one that looked like my cousin or acted. I don't want to say looked like, acted like my cousin because I thought that's what you were supposed to act like. That's what big sis act like. She kind of had the same mindset as my mom in certain ways that were very sarcastic and funny and stuff like that too. So I thought that's what you're supposed to find. That's how close, we were as family. Like my big cousin, he was my big brother, my second cousin in the same, that was my big sister. And then my little sister was my actual sister, and my little brother was my little brother. I thought I was the middle child. That's how we were raised. And Unc, they father, Unc, and they mother, auntie, when we was with them, we was their child. Got another doctor's appointment in a couple hours. Okay, amen. We'll be checking in with you, right? Praying for you. So, but yeah, you see what I'm saying? But that's part of the oppressive mindset. That's part of the oppressive mindset is to get you and I to be so against each other and anti each other that we're not able to do anything in righteousness together. Right? That's part of the oppressive mindset. It's literally by color. That's all a colorism story. While some of the same persons that wouldn't help because of the color of my mother's skin, some literally the cousin that I looked up to as a big sister, I just said, she was almost the same color as my mama. But I couldn't hang out with them anymore because behind the scenes they was having this thing where they wouldn't tell the children about it, but we naturally got into schisms as well. So now a lot of us don't even talk to each other, even brothers and sisters, because you had to choose your side. I just decided finally, eventually, not choose a side at all. Matter of fact, so did my little brother. And so because of it, we kind of both on our own islands by ourselves. And then everybody else has their islands with other persons. What's that going to do to the next generation after us? In a situation where many of us grow up and don't even recognize who passed our great grandmother at best, great grandfather at best, past who they are. How much more are we separating family? That's what I'm saying. At some point, we got to get back to something as simple as what is a husband? What is a wife? What is the cultural precedence for children? And what are families supposed to be? That's that's going to be the thing that informs us on what a husband or wife is, no matter what color they are perceived to be. Because, like I said before, there's a lot of y'all. I've shown a picture of my mother before on here before on TikTok, and if you were to see a picture of my mom, a lot of y'all would be like, "Oh," and a lot of you would see a picture of her mom. A lot of y'all would be like, "But both are black, both raised black." So this is why we have to go through this guidebook, not just for that, but because we have to have a code for ourselves, and it can't be as simple as the lighter you are. Matter of fact, a lot of y'all don't even know melanin's not is never measured from the outside in. It's always measured from the inside out. Now, obviously, manifestation is a mug, right? So we can tell if you're darker, and especially if you're extremely dark, you probably got more melanin than somebody who's extremely light. But you'd be surprised. Some of y'all who are like my complexion, and somebody who might be, light skinned, bright light and all that stuff we be saying, red bone and stuff like that. Even though some persons would think red bone is closer to me, but whatever, right? A lot of y'all, if you see them on the inside, they could have more melanin than you. Just because you have more melanin in your skin doesn't mean that they don't have more melanin in their hearts, that they don't do better with the pineal gland, right? They don't do better in the hypothalamus. Like you don't know. So melanin is never measured scientifically. Melanin is never measured from the outside in. It's always measured from the inside out. I'm just saying, just because an apple has a darker shade on the outside doesn't mean that it has more chlorophyll, right? Cauliflower has chlorophyll in it. That's why the outside of it is actually really, really dark green. You just eat the white part, but doesn't mean it doesn't have any chlorophyll, right? Might have less magnesium, but doesn't mean it has any less chlorophyll. You see, so there's a lot of stuff. Okay. Anyways, though, right? And some of y'all just need to get out in the sun. You get in the sun, you be activating anyways. You be seeing a lot of persons a lot darker than what you think, anyways. And my babies, all my babies started off light bright. The older they get, the darker they get. And then put them in the sun for a couple of weeks, they be whole different, whole different complexion. You're like, dang, what? You be looking at pictures of the old. Wait a minute, you ain't skin lightening, you skin darkening. I don't know how you doing that, but okay. Right? How you doing, K-Roy? Anyways, right? So let's go ahead. Yeah, be cooking. That melanin be cooking. All right. Let's go ahead and get into this. How you doing, Brother Craig, if I didn't say so earlier? How you doing, Sister Joy, if I didn't say so earlier? Once again, keep Sister Marion in prayers. Praise Yah. All righty. Let's get into this. I'm sorry, y'all. We still haven't gotten into it. Let me finish uploading this real quick, and then we can go ahead and get in. Once again, we're going to the book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System. Sorry, the United Independent Compensatory Code /system / concept. The United Independent Compensatory Code /system / concept by Neely Fuller Jr. That's Neely Fuller, Fuller Jr. And the name of this series is Neely Fuller Jr. and Code. If you're looking for recordings, whether it be on the podcast or on Facebook or on YouTube, you can just look up Neely Fuller and Code. That's what we're calling this series. Right? And prayerfully, I know some of you said your book is on order. Right? But you can also get the PDF. You can get a free PDF. I'm actually using one now, but the one that I'm using, it has quite a bit of advertisement. You have to go through to just use it. Even if you're reading the page, it has so much advertisement. Sometimes you can't even finish the page, especially if you're like me and you like to go over certain sentences over and over again. While you're reading, it will literally pull up with another advertisement. All right. But it is what it is. That's what we're using. And prayerfully, you guys are ready to go ahead and get into what Yahavah has for us in this book. For today, we're going to be doing this for a little while longer, maybe even through the rest of the month. So just be ready. It's not going to be an easy thing to deal with, but it is what it is. Am I? All right. How you doing, Sister Taya? All right. How you doing, Mr. Crazy? All right. So we're on page 12, and we're going to start where it says there's different editions. I'm not sure which edition says what or what page, but the one I have is on page 12. It says some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. And we talked about this already. This book is designed where you need to really read through it quite a bit, at least once through. But if you can read it over and over again, you get it better each time. That's how it's designed to be done. It's a workbook as well. So you're supposed to work this stuff out, write some things out, look at some things, ask yourself questions, talk it over with others. All right. But it's page 12, some questions and answers relative to racial compensation. So first question, it says, what is the statute of limitations on justice? We talked about this earlier, statute of limitations on justice. And so statute of limitations, obviously, we're talking about lawfully speaking, statute of limitations says this is how long somebody can, how long from when a crime is committed to when basically you can't be held accountable or brought on trial for it any longer, right? So there's such things as some places to where no matter how heinous the crime is, you could essay somebody, for example, and no matter how much you essay somebody or whatever, you can still basically, if you can get away with it for however long it is, 20 years, 30 years, whatever, they can't bring it up anymore. And so somebody could literally walk into a place and say, I did thus and such. Matter of fact, sometimes persons want to question you about something having to do with this so they can find the body. So they go to the person and like, look, we need to find the body, or whatever statute of limitations is up, or we'll even, use that to be able to go ahead and excuse what you did. The family just wants to know where the body is. And so the person will actually tell them, okay, I did this to the body. The body's hidden here, blah, blah, whatever, right? Statute of limitations. Right. So, what is the statute of limitations concerning justice, or concerning us getting rid of racism, white supremacy? Because, see, that's part of the problem too. Is somebody will say, "Well, just because my people made this much money off of you," right? You hear stuff like that. Somebody says, "Well, you guys made money off of us, and we should have reparations." And by the way, I believe that reparations is something that is deserved. I just think that the boat has sailed. I think you guys should start looking at realizing that maybe you're not going to get that. Right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't get reparations. I'm saying you should look at inward reparations before you keep looking for it to come from outward. But you've heard persons say that, like, "Oh, I didn't do that," or "Just because I got money, how you doing, D?" Or "Just because my family got set up with this," or "Just because I'm white, it doesn't mean I don't go," and blah blah. Why are you holding me accountable, right? And like Jerry Jones, for example, Dallas Cowboy owner, very famously recently, he was found in that famous picture where he's from in Texas, to where he was part of a group of white children that were stopping a little black. The black children from being able to go into the school and stuff. And then persons like Stephen A. Smith and others come up because they're like basically trying to give you this sense of statute of limitations. How long are we gonna blame them for this and that? Look, he pays black persons. He's their owner. How can he, foolishness. So what is the statute of limitations on justice? And justice, if you recall, is defined through this prism as being making sure we break. Justice is anything that is anti-racism, white supremacy. Right? So as far as Neely Fuller, he says there is no statute of limitations on justice. No matter when or where non-justice exists, it should be immediately replaced with justice. There is no statute of limitations. Why should we make things right? Because there is no statute of limitation. If you say that you are anti-racism, white supremacy, there is no statute of limitations. There is no, we don't have to make it right anymore because, hey, we got away with it. This is why it says earlier in the book that the persons who can eradicate racism, white supremacy, right, do not have the will to do so, right? So the person, I think he even uses the words, the persons who have the ability to eradicate racism, white supremacy, they have the ability to do so. They do not have the will to get rid of it. And the persons who have the will to eradicate it, we have not yet developed the ability to do so. That's important. Because if the persons in charge wanted to get rid of racism, white supremacy, they could do so tonight, immediately. That's how easy. I know somebody wants to say it's not that easy. I'm not saying we wouldn't have to train persons to do that, but if you want to really make it a level playing field, you could dismantle all your weapons. You could give back money to where you took it from. You could go ahead and make sure, even if your family is great for generations, some persons have so much money that they can take care of their family for 100 generations and still give y'all 95% of what they have. If you don't believe so, Bill Gates, right? He has it well, at the time, him and his wife, right? But they had it, and I think they still do have it set up to where they have so many billions that basically their children are getting like 0.5% of what they have, and their children are upset about it. But their children will still be taken care of for generations off of 0.5%. And the rest of it, they're just giving to charities. But they could give it to you, the persons who they made it off of. But they won't do that. Like, you can fix it overnight. I talked about this before. If I'm ever blessed with $1 billion, there's no reason why anybody who's part of my organization for the rest of my life should ever not have money. You know how easy that would be? And I even said, even if you take taxes, even if you tax me heavy, even if you said I'm gonna take half of it and you only got 500 million left, you know how easy it would be for me to make sure that none of y'all who are part of what we do doesn't eat again? All I would need, and it would be too much money, to be honest. I'd be setting y'all up to be eating lavishly. You know what I'm saying? But all I would need is $1 million a year, bare minimum or maximum. Because I could get land, I could grow food, I could distribute it, and not one person on here would ever go hungry again, no matter if you had housing problems or not. We'd find you whatever it takes. Shoot, even if we needed to get some stuff from time to time to be like, we'll put you up in a place just to feed you until you get the next place. We get literally for $1 million a year, that'd be it. And if $1 million a year, right, and I live to be 150. If you took that, I'm 44 now. Let's just say I'm sorry, 44, 42. Sorry. I'm 42, I'm 42 years. I'll be forgetting how old I am. I'm 42 years old now. And at 42, right? Let's just go ahead and say I'm 40 for the sake of it, right? For easy math. That means 110 years, you would take 1 million. I would set that aside, 110. If I set aside 110 million, I still would have what? $390 million to do whatever I felt like doing. That's me spending a whole lot. You 44? Okay. Right, but that's me spending a whole lot on just food. Right? But somebody would come by and say, "Oh no, that's too much." No. Like it's actually that simple. If somebody really wanted to change what's going on, you know how many black millionaires there are now? And if they really wanted to change stuff, but they don't have the mind to do so, right? Those that have the ability. See, we're only thinking about racism, white supremacy, saying white persons who can change it aren't doing what they're supposed to do. No, there's black folk that could change it today, right? You ever heard this concept, or you guys know this concept? Those of you who got babies, you said 1 million would set you up for life. Yeah, those of you, those of you who have babies, you know what I'm talking about when I say this, right? Your baby gets to a certain time. I don't care if your baby is 15. If your baby hasn't ate anything, they get an attitude. They're not trying to, they're just hungry. Right? Peep game. When your baby becomes a grown man, grown woman, but usually this happens with men more so. Right? Women do it too, right? They just usually they don't get expected, they don't get caught as much. They become a grown man. They start getting hungry. They ain't eating, they ain't getting certain things in their diet. They get an attitude. Stay with me now, right? They might even start robbing because they hangry. Yeah, they hungry. They need to be fed. Yeah, they in a stank mood. They all over the place. And right, person spiritually even, they need to be fed. Culturally, they need to be fed. Linguistic wise, they need to be fed. They need to be fed. Right? And they hungry out here and they got an attitude. They got something that's again. See, watch this. Sometimes what you talking about your sister, have you ever thought about when you say sisters are always angry, this and that? Think about what they've been fed. Have they been fed things that are nurturing? They're always giving out nurturing, but they don't get nurture supplement. Right? They don't get fed a nurturing supplement. They just get fed whatever. You angry, you get fed black women ain't this, you get fed, I'm a high value man, you get fed, well, you should just take care of yourself, you get fed. Well, so what if I cheated? You get fed. You see what I'm saying? They get fed this stuff, and then you look at them, you say, why they got an attitude? What they being fed. When's the last time they ate love? Oh, all these men, they think that they high mind, they think they better than this and that. Can I be honest? Some of y'all was feeding these brothers that they were the man in the house when they were 6 years old. What do you think he was gonna get? They fed more respect for street and sports than they are for education. What you think you was gonna get? When somebody gets hungry, how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Almonds. Always check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, a biologist, biologist by degree. Love you, babe. Thank you for all that you do. Right? They get if you get fed something that doesn't supplement, you'll give you what you need to be supplied. Right? Then you're gonna grow up with malnourished. And a lot of persons in their spirit and their mind and in their hearts, they're malnourished. How you doing, Sister Brad? You see, racism, white supremacy malnourishes all that are in it, except the ones that are at the top. They have become the Ezekiel 34 preachers in a sense, right? They have become the preachers, the leaders, who eat the sheep and eat their food before they eat them, as long as they survive at the top and they can remain fat, and they want to call themselves shepherds. Okay, right? So we always talk about what the white man does, and it's very important in this book. We recognize, sure, this is racism, white supremacy, but the white man has also trained as Willie Lynch would say, he's trained the bull. He's trained the stallion. The stallion is supposed to make sure that he's separated from the mare. He does all the work for the massa. Massa rides the back of the stallion, but every once in a while, right, when it's time to give him some new babies that he might be able to make sure that he has to serve him later on, he'll make sure that that stallion gets a chance to mate with as many mares as he wants. And then as soon as he finishes mating, he's back to doing what he's supposed to do. This is and Willie Lynch said that's how you're supposed to raise the N-word male and the N-word female. How you doing, Lynette? So it's important that we catch that. All right, let's go. Let's keep on going. I told you. All right. So whenever there is no statute of limitations on justice. Next question: how does the law of compensation relate to color? All color, shades of color. Now, this is something I'm gonna just read through because this should be kingdom sense, not common sense. So we should get this. But how does the law of compensation relate to color? All color, shades of color, or absence of color is neutral. There's no such thing as so-called right color or wrong color. All known color, shades of color, or absence of color have a correct claim to existence. It is incorrect to either hate or love color, shades of color, or absence of color. The action toward and or reaction to color, shades of color, or absence of color by people is always determined by the way people see themselves in relation to all people, places, things, etc. To recognize and or acknowledge the differences in color, shades of color, or absence of color in the appearance and or in the essence of the people, animals, plants, etc. is correct. So we should be able to acknowledge the differences without saying you're better because you're black or you're white or you're light skin or you're dark skin. To treat people, animals, plants, etc., unjustly, which means what? To treat them through the prism of racism, white supremacy, and or incorrectly by utilizing factors associated with differences of color, shades of color, or absence of color is to contribute to one of the major reasons for the absence of peace in the known universe. So to be in the colorism is to help to make sure that you have no shalom. You are an active participant in getting rid of peace. That's what we're getting here. That's what we're being told. Did you catch that? So many persons are having issues with these things and with these items because they're not realizing and recognizing like you're trying to go down this trail and all this stuff and trying to do all these things, and you think you're doing this and you think you're really unlocking something, and the reality is just you're locking your brothers and sisters out. They're not able to get what the Most High wants. They're not able to become who it is. You're locking yourself out. You're locking yourself away from a community that should be at peace one with another. Right? These are simple things, and these are things that we shouldn't even have to read. Somebody shouldn't even have to write this stuff out. How you doing, C-Tunes? No, somebody shouldn't even have to tell us these things, but they have to be addressed, unfortunately, because we were raised in racism, white supremacy so much that we think that the way to govern ourselves or even how to figure out how educated we are, everything comes from the mind of the oppressor. And for whatever reason, we've decided that oppressive mindset is what we're supposed to use to say what's better. This is why you brag over who got the best whoopings, right? And you argue over who knows more than anybody else as far as how to abuse each other. And you talk about, abusive stuff as far as it being being what you look at, right? Like it's hard out here for a pimp, but why would you want to be a pimp? But that's important. Pimping ain't easy is important to say when you look up the pimps more so than you look up the scholars. You want to be the baddest bee, but why would you want to be a female dog? And why would you want to be bad? Bad in Hebrew, bad in Paleo Hebrew actually means to be alone. And it's not righteous for man to be alone. Right? You grew up wanting to be like Prince, Wanted to be like Michael Jackson. I used to do my little kicks and stuff. Still can every once in a while get my leg up there and do my little Prince and Michael Jackson. And you wanted to be like Earth, Wind, and Fire. You wanted to be like Sam Cooke. You wanted to be like all these cats out here. And you look at them, they were very feminine. A lot of y'all don't know that in order for them to get into white establishments, you had to be demasculated or emasculated. If you were too manly, if you were too much like a black man, you were problematic. They had to get rid of you. So when you look at some of these costumes and you like, that they're costumes, persons are wearing things that you would never think that we would wear. You go like, man, why are they even wearing this stuff? It's because they had to do that stuff to fit in. They had to get rid of their hair. They slicked their hair to look more feminine. Now today you think that that's masculine. No, your men that had to get into those clubs had to look more masculine. Matter of fact, we were watching something last night, my wife and I, and it was on. I couldn't share it. It was on TikTok. I was trying to duet it, but it won't let you duet it. And so I don't like. I used to do that, but I don't like copying somebody's stuff and then duetting it when they don't want it to be duetted. But she was talking about the history of, I believe it's in Louisiana, and it's happened other places, but she was talking about the connection to France and how women, they made laws, they put it on the books to where they had your hair was made unlawful. Now a lot of you know that much, but you might not know it to this degree. Sisters, your hair became something where white men really liked it. And white women didn't like the fact that they liked it, right? That's why they had you wearing those masks and stuff around the world too, because they didn't like that they were attracted to your face, and then they would put you on display in zoos and sometimes even display in museums and stuff, where they would put you in glasses and stuff because men were attracted to your body so much that they'd have you in a mask and they'd look at your body and they would be outside the cage doing all types of crazy stuff to themselves around the cage or around the glass they had you in and stuff like that, and you had to just sit there and be, ogled, to say the least. Um, but with your hair specifically, in Louisiana, they came up with the law because your hair, especially when you had the fro, y'all would grow the fro out. And when you would grow the fro out, and you would have even some of y'all that, I don't know how to describe it. Is it wavy hair or like, I don't know please forgive me, I don't know what the adjective is, but when you kind of have like the finger press thing going on, but it's natural and all that stuff, whatever, and your hair would stick out, and y'all would be decorating your hair. And you could decorate it differently because you could do other things, and it would even cover up your earrings. So when it started covering up your earrings and other piercings you might even have and display, you would take your hair and make sure that you were putting feathers and earrings and all types of stuff, finger waves, okay, and all that type of stuff in your hair, and you would literally be like wearing it out. And so when white men would approach you and you'd be like, no, I'm not really interested, right? Then they would get upset, or when they thought you were too high-minded or too uppity. So they started saying, that your hair needed to come down, right? So, or it needed to be covered. So then you got in trouble because then you started wearing, what y'all call protective headwear. And you started wearing that stuff. And when you started wearing your wraps and all that stuff, you started decorating the mess out of that too. So then they outlawed that. But while they were doing that, word traveled back to France around the time of Napoleon. And Napoleon, his wife, Josephine, his wife caught wind that that's what y'all were doing. And so you'll see a lot of pictures of Napoleon's wife, of Josephine, wearing the wrap and having all this jewelry on it. And you think that if you're not careful, you'll go, that's because of them. But that's because of you. Right? That's what you was doing. You was rocking that, and you had to rock it in that style. So word got all the way back because remember, Louisiana became part of the Louisiana Purchase, right? Louisiana was part of France. Napoleon starts losing. He sells to make money, especially after Haiti gets free. He says, "Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sell this to y'all." And so then you became part of eventually what's known as the United States of America, or what is the United States of America at that time. Excuse me. Right. So you had this style that y'all was already doing, looking like royalty and stuff, and you were called uppity because you knew that you looked great and you knew that it was okay to tell somebody you wasn't attracted to, "Oh, I don't really want you like that." And how dare you say that to a white man? So They literally got rid of it and then allowed your royalty to be known for it. You don't even realize when you see a picture of Josephine like that, that's you. I haven't seen the movie. I still want to. I just want to see what they did with it to see how realistic it is. I haven't seen the movie that Joaquin Phoenix was in, so I don't really know about that. I don't really know about about how they depicted her. But I wonder if in the movie they actually got her with the head wrap. If so, that's you though. You've always been the standard, yeah, most definitely. Right? You said it was pretty decent. Yeah, I like what's his name, Joaquin Phoenix, even though he's weird in real life. But I like you know for what it's worth. I mean, it's drama, but he does drama pretty well. Right? But anyways, so we read what we read. Yeah, so let's jump down real quick to page 14. Okay, I'm gonna start at the first. It says facts about the. Or actually, hold on, no. Sorry, excuse me. We might jump down to page 15. Page 15. If you got the book, once again, the book is called The United. Oh, I'm having issues here. The book is called The United Compensatory Code System. You know what? Hold on. Let me do something real quick. Let me try something. I told you I'm using the same thing that I told y'all to get to the. If I can look at it, you should be able to look at it. Okay, let's try to go to page 13. Let's try to go to page 13. Let's try to go to page 13. Right back to is general notes relative to racism and the law of compensation. If a system produces injustice, okay, if a system produces injustice, then the rules that maintain the system are incorrect. Even though these same rules, if used to maintain a just system, would be correct rules. Did you catch that? That's deep. If a system produces injustice, then the rules that maintain the system are incorrect, even though these same rules, if used to maintain a just system, would be correct. All right. So this is him trying to help you out with this argument. Well, you saying we got to get rid of the whole system? We've gone ahead and we've said that we should go ahead and do stuff like affirmative action. We should make sure that persons that don't have opportunities should get opportunities. What more do you want? Right? That's an argument that you'll hear. He's saying though, if that argument is if those rules are being used though to keep up a wicked system, it's still wicked. Right? Somebody might not catch this. See, look, yeah, the rule that's there to say, hey, persons that are downtrodden because of oppression should be given an opportunity on some level to be better. That's great. But he's saying if the system itself, though, is what causes the negative downtrodden perspective, we can't use that outlier within it to say that the system's cooking. Because if we had a system that wasn't in the United States of America, it doesn't mean that there's no system out there that doesn't make sure that persons can't be taken care of if they're ostracized and oppressed. Right? So so there's some things we got to catch with this system called racism. That's an argument that many persons will use. Well, why do you only see the bad? Don't you see the positive? Just because it's like saying about a lie. Right? We say this all the time. A half truth is always a whole lie. Right? A half truth sounds great. A half truth. Our fathers brought forth on this continent, right? Blah blah blah. Right? Our fathers decided that the United States of America needed to be free. Our fathers wanted us to be free from tyranny and stuff like that. But your fathers also called us savages and made us bond. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Abraham Lincoln helped with the 13th Amendment to make sure that you couldn't be arrested just because you were black. But once you were arrested for any reason, now you can go back to the same plantation and still make money. It sounds great as a half truth, but it's still a whole lie. It makes you feel great. That's what it is. Just because it makes you feel great doesn't mean it's true. You gotta let yourself know, let others know. Just because you feel great about it doesn't mean that it's true. Yeah, that's not our fathers anyways, right? Especially if they said that you wasn't nothing. right? So just because something is said to be true, it doesn't mean, or something is said and there's some positivity, and it doesn't mean that the whole system is correct, right? Now let's keep on going. It says racism, white supremacy is an incorrect system that promotes injustice. Any person who willfully helps to establish, maintain, expand, and or refine a condition of racism, white supremacy, and or does not at all times strive to speak and or act against this condition is a criminal and or an agent of criminals. And we don't like to talk about stuff like this, but this is criminal behavior. Racism, white supremacy. See, we're talking about now, we're going into kingdom law. We're going into universal law. We're going into natural law. Anybody, remember, before somebody tries to hit us with this, racism, white supremacy is against all. Only certain so-called white persons are supposed to make it to the top. So it's against all who are, right? So the system is against everyone to hold everybody in positions. Anybody who's okay with being poor white trash and racism, white supremacy, just because you're white, you are a problem and you are a criminal, and that's criminal behavior. Anybody who's all right with saying, hey, well, I know as black folk, this is all we're going to get. You are a criminal, and that's criminal behavior. That should be the code. That should be your mindset. And when we start speaking with this mindset, persons get nervous. It's the truth, though. That's the code, right? Criminal behavior. It should be criminal. We should think to our head, this is criminal for our people, and our people being anybody who is anti-racism, white supremacy. It is criminal behavior for you to say that all black women, it's okay. It's criminal what Andrew Schultz did to black women and then did to a black man. It's criminal behavior for Charlemagne the God, whatever he called himself, to come before and to go ahead and say that it's okay to do that. It should be criminal behavior for us. And see, that's when you got to be careful. When somebody says that I'm going to be comedian before look, I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. If you're a comedian before you're your people, something's wrong with you. All right. You might not want to hear this because it's going to sound weird to you, right? I'm a pastor of a people. If you're not in the kingdom, I'm not your pastor. Right? To you, I can be a pastor, but I'm not your pastor. Now I know you don't want to hear it said like this because I'm going somewhere. But hear me, beloved, right? That's real talk, right? So I'm not held, I don't hold you, right, to certain standards if I'm not your pastor. By the way, I don't hold, well, I hope you guys are getting the context. It's going to be difficult for me to pull out. Holy Ghost, you're going to have to take the reins on this. Look, I'm not expecting someone who's not in the kingdom to live by certain standards. And somebody who comes on who's not in the kingdom, yeah, we can have conversation. But I'm not really talking with you or speaking with you or expecting you to do what those in the kingdom do. Okay? I'm not your pastor if you're not in the kingdom. Matter of fact, even if you're in the kingdom, doesn't mean I'm your prelate or your assembler or your pastor or your marach or your teacher or your rabbi, etc. That doesn't mean just because you're in the kingdom. But those of you who are with me on this journey and follow us as we follow Christ, I need you to recognize something. As far as our standards, if you do what's against the law, that is criminal behavior. How you doing, Paul? And thanks for being part of the community. And thanks for the love. Right. I want you to catch this. And so here's something else that a lot of persons don't want to hear. I'm a pastor of a people. And the people are those who are grafted into the will and the reigns of Yah through Yahashadal, through Yahashua HaMashiach, and through the kingdom. And if you're not in that, I'm just telling you, I'm not your pastor. Right? As much as I love all, because I even love my enemies, I have to be lawful, a lawful sovereign within this sovereignty, within this kingdom. Right? Under the king, under the true sovereign, I've been allowed to be a sovereign and been given a specific lane to run in. And I'm going to run my race well so I can get that crown and become a fellow heir as is promised. And in this run, right, in this race that I'm running in, I'm not running it. How you doing, Henry? I'm not running to try and make sure that those in the kingdom are going to get the same as those who aren't. right? So if you are doing something outside the kingdom, it's criminal behavior. Now, because now this is about to make somebody upset. But look, this is one of the reasons persons be like, well, Pastor Kofi, why don't you go back to activism? Why aren't you speaking on behalf of this? Why aren't you speaking on behalf of that? Why aren't you speaking on behalf of this anymore? Because it's not my calling. If you are not one of Yah's people, it's not my calling. And it is impossible. I know persons don't want to hear this. It is impossible. I don't care who's telling you what. Anybody who's out here telling you that they are called to make sure that they fight on behalf of everyone is a liar. I'm gonna just make that plain. And some of the persons that do that are persons that I hold near and dear. Some of them are very popular on social media. Some of you know connections that I have with some of them. Some of them you might not know because I haven't been really around that long. I'm here to tell you though, anybody telling you they're here to fight for every single person is a liar because you care. You cannot. I know somebody tried to tell you that. It's impossible. You're not designed for it. You're not equipped for it. You're not the most high. Right? I can't fight for everybody. I'm one person, first of all, but I can't fight for everybody. You know how I know I can't fight for this is why these persons come off as confused and they have to keep changing things up. I can't sit there and say I fight for every woman when there are some women that are feminists, and feminists are persons who are into who are into racism, white supremacy, and they don't fight for womanism, they don't fight for any type of intersectionality, and they don't fight for black women. I'm not going to do it. I can't. You're not the same. And this is where they try to trick you. This is where they try to trick you into, oh, so you don't support everybody. No, it's impossible. This is the lie. This is one of the cognitive dissonance things. It's a half truth. It's a whole lie though. Somebody lying to you. You can't fight for everybody. You cannot. I know you want to. I'm fighting for persons that believe in Saturnalia and Christmas, and it's okay to do whatever you want. And we know that he wasn't even born then. But I'm also fighting for everybody who's in truth. Wait a minute. How? Time out. I know it's gonna hurt. I told you this series ain't gonna be easy, right? But real talk. How am I fight? How can I fight for everybody? Help me. Somebody help me. Maybe I'm just off. Maybe I'm out of control. Maybe I don't. But somebody help me. How do I fight for everybody when everybody doesn't agree? How do you fight for the person that says you don't have a right to tell a woman what to do with her body? And then at the same time, you fight for the person that says that what Yah says to do with your body is what I'm see, it's not gonna be easy, but it's truth. We got to ask ourselves some real show enough questions. Something's going on and they making sense. We got to ask ourselves some stuff. Wait a minute. Like, yeah, double-minded. It's cognitive dissonance. Hold up. So you're telling me that I'm supposed to fight for everybody, and somehow I'm supposed to fight for the woman that says nobody should tell her what to do with their body, while the word says, God says what to do with our bodies. So if I tell you what Yahavah says, I'm still supposed to fight for you and make what he says fit into what you want. But he's your king? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. You can't fight for everybody, right? You're righteous or you're not. And as much as everybody wants me to do this weird thing, look, I can talk to just about anybody, but to fight for your side, no. I picked a side long time ago. It's called righteousness. Right? I'm supposed to fight for all men. While some men say that, hey, treat a woman however, and she's just supposed to be this, and you should run through them and blah, blah, this and that. But then Yah says it's the standard for husband, and it's supposed to be lifted up and elevated, and that husband that's lifted up should also lift up his wife and not be looking for a woman, but look for a wife. Hold up. So am I supposed to follow this man over here who says have as many as you want and run through them and treat them like holes in the ground, etc., and does it in his personal life? Or am I supposed to trust what Yah says and become a higher level? I don't need to be a high value man. I need to be a higher level man. To stay subjective, not objective. Profit appears and self-control. I'm sorry, Chris, I don't comprehend exactly what's being said, but welcome. Hello, how you doing? All right. So you hear what I'm saying? Like These things are in here where we're sitting on all this stuff, and persons are talking about fight for everybody. You can't fight for everybody. Anybody who tells you that is a liar, because everybody doesn't agree. I've said this before. I believe, first of all, we should make sure that we humanize LGBTQ plus persons. They are human beings, even if we touch and agree that they're sinning, whatever the case might be. That being said, though, even within their own community, I've told them, like, yo, it's hard for me to even help you out with the humanity piece because y'all be arguing on what a human being is. If we don't even know what a human being is, how do I argue your humanity for you? I know you're human. I'm arguing your humanity from a standard, but you keep changing the standard so much. What am I supposed to argue? How do I defend your humanity when you keep telling me that when I defend it, it's not humanity? No shade. Telling the truth. Right? That's a problem that a lot of persons have with so-called, Christians and stuff like that. Right? These Christians mix iron with clay. So you're supposed to believe in the word, but then we show you the word that says you shouldn't do Christmas, and you guys keep doing it. You guys keep saying that you follow the word. Well, the word says that the word shall remain forever, but you keep saying if it's Old Testament, doesn't matter. You keep saying that the law doesn't matter, but Christ himself says that do unto others as you want done unto you, for this is the law and the prophets. That's the standards. He also says that he came not to destroy the law, but that it might be fulfilled. He came and he said that we shouldn't change one jot or tittle of it. He came and he said that those who follow it and teach it are considered to be the greatest in the kingdom, and those who don't follow it and do not teach it are considered to be the least in the kingdom. And then he said, no, the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. And here you are listing the scribes and Pharisees who don't know the law and tell you not to participate in it. Like, what are you? What are you? Revelation chapter 20, verse 12 says that if your works aren't in the books, then your name can't be in the book of life. What are you? You can't be what you say you are. You're not genuine. Right? You can't fight for everybody. You gotta learn truth. If you won't stand for something, matter of fact, let's change it, because I think the saying is if you cannot stand for something or will not stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I'll say this: if you won't stand on one thing, you will fall for anything. If you can't stand on one thing, you can't stand on one thing. You are so busy trying to fall on everything and cover all angles. You're playing Twister and don't realize that this ain't Twister. Stand on the red. Stand on the blood that was shed. Let it cover you. Let it wash your sins that you might be clear as snow. You're not here. You see what I'm saying? This ain't Twister. This ain't a game. You got to stand strong. Remember, there are those who stood on the sand, right? I'm sorry, there's he who built his house on the rock, and he who built his house upon the rock. He is one who is wise. If he listens to what was said in the Sermon on the Mount, if you listen to those wise sayings, you are like he who built his house upon the rock and withstood the storm. If you do not listen, you are foolish. Not because you built your house on the sea, but you built your house on the sand. And when the storm came, everything was washed away. Why? Because the sand is in between. You're trying to cover all bases. The water, you can't put a house on the water, right? And but you can put a house on rock. But what you do is you don't want to be on solid ground and in truth. So you try to get in the sand. Sand is a compound word. Sea is the s, and land is the and. Sand, halfway in between the sea and halfway in between the land. You're double-minded. And in our double-minded nature, we keep trying to make excuses for why we keep going down when the storm comes. You're going down when the storm comes because you won't stand on truth. You want to be able to talk about having something solid enough to live on, right? But then when the storm comes, you're upset that it keeps falling down. Why? Because you keep going back to the same place, the same mentality, the same thing. Even Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., when he was in prison, he wrote, I forget what it's called. It's actually a famous writing that they took and they have on display quite a few places. And he made it a point to say, back in the 60s, he said, one of the reasons why the church and everybody's falling apart back then, he was saying, is because, we don't really do enough. We need to do more, making sure that we're dealing with real life problems and issues and racism, white supremacy. He said, young persons aren't coming if we don't do that. And he wasn't lying, right? If you're not going to deal with the issues, letters. I think it was in Letters from Birmingham and something else as well. But if you look at, but they have something where it's just that by itself. But if you look at what he's saying, he's telling the truth, right? That like persons are going away from worshiping the Most High because you guys are pretending like the Most High is not interested in the fact that they deal with racism, white supremacy. Like you guys literally, a lot of preachers and teachers are out here pretending that the Most High cares about righteousness, except for when somebody says that the way that you were born, the way that he produced and created you is not enough. And they're tired of you telling them that the Most High is not interested in it. So if the Most High is not interested in it, then they're going to find somewhere else. That's why your sisters, right? That's why Black women are the highest and fastest growing witches, right? Or persons as far as, ethnic group or whatever, are the highest forming group of witches and covens and hives, right? And all that stuff. They are the fastest. That's why Beyonce has a Bayhive. You don't know that because a hive is like a coven is a small group of witches. A hive is a big group of witches. Right? Beehive, Bayhive. That's what they're talking about. That's why she dresses like a witch all the time. Different witches for different performances to get different spirits. If you don't believe that, look at how she's even dressed and the stuff that's going on during Black is King. You're so busy saying, oh, look at the fact that she's bringing out Black is beautiful. No, look at a lot of that stuff that's there. And I don't care what they're trying to say. Oh, everybody just tries to say anything African is negative. No. African persons don't believe that there should be red horns on red motorcycles running around on their own power. Africans don't believe that there should be a woman in a white dress and there should be a man in a red suit, and the man in the red suit has a serpent around him, and then it should turn into and be on the woman in the white dress. Africans don't believe, right? And that whole thing that you think is the Mary and Christ child or Madonna and Christ child. Madonna is a spirit, but that was worship, and Madonna had a child, and they changed it into Miriam, but it was never Miriam, and she's in that same post throughout the whole video. Right, you're not seeing culturally what's going on. You're just trying to support something and just say just because it's Black. No, just because it's Black. That's why I say it's a cultural. This is a code. We got to see what's going on, beloved. We don't want to see it. I get why we don't want to see it, but we got to see what's going on, beloved. As much as you don't like what I'm saying about Bay, it's real. It's real. We have to recognize what's going on. And we have to recognize that there's some things we need to come out of. You have witches that are actually out here telling you, witches that are coming out and showing you, doing live sessions, doing interviews, and telling you, oh yeah, so and so does this. Oh yeah, look at what's her face, Erica Badu. Y'all say, oh no, y'all just getting on her. No. She tells you she's a witch. In your culture, a witch deserves. How you doing, Sister Beverly? Because a witch is dangerous. How many women are you gonna have to see with that pentagram and blood on the floor, and them always in some kind of outfit that's showing their whole body off and stuff with blood dripping from their eyes and their mouth and stuff like that in the pictures? How many of them you gonna see have to have that same pose before they're finally given an opportunity? Is Rihanna, Beyonce, Britney Spears, I don't know, Katy Perry, I can't recall all the names. Lady Gaga. How many of them? Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, all of them. Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion, Ariana Grande. Thank you, babe. I mean, how many you gonna see before you start going? There's witchcraft. Only way you getting in is you gotta bow down to this Baphomet spirit, to bow down to the Ishtar spirit. Right? That's why you gotta have a code. We're not just talking about black, white. We're talking about your spirit too. All right. Next up, we still on page 13. Next up, all comforts that come to any white person as a direct or indirect result of the practice of white supremacy or racism, white supremacy, are comforts unjustly received, whether you like it or not. Right? If you get comfort, if you gotten something comfortable through the lens of racism, white supremacy, it means you got it through the comfort of racism, white supremacy. If you believe racism, white supremacy is bad, then you should believe that racism, white supremacy is bad. Therefore, if your family is being given opportunity because of racism, white supremacy, then they shouldn't get it. That also means black folk. We got to get into ourselves, right? So-called black persons. That means you must recognize if you get something through racism, white supremacy, you also unjustly received it. Okay. All right. Biblically speaking, what you talking about, Pastor? Biblically speaking, we're in the wilderness. We're given a command. Go in. Destroy everybody and everything. Don't take anything for yourself. All of a sudden we go and we do as the Most High commanded, and we wipe everybody out, and we don't take anything, and we go back to our camp, and all of a sudden we going through some curses all of a sudden. And we're trying to figure out, man, what's going on? Like, we're cursed. What's happening? Come to find out, the Most High says somebody got something in your camp. Go find them. Finally, somebody admits that they're the person that took something they weren't supposed to take. How you doing, Sister Michelle? And when this person admits to taking something they weren't supposed to take, what happens next? That person was stoned because it was unjustly received. And what's unjustly received curses everybody. It's the truth. No, you don't understand. I worked for this many years. Yeah, did you get it through racism, white supremacy? No, you don't understand. Everybody else, they just lazy. That your talk sound like racism, white supremacy. Everybody's lazy. You don't understand. I made a choice. I was able to get out. Well, yeah, you know how many persons wish they could have that choice? Like, do you not know how this game works? Do you not know that it's back in the plantation, that the whole plantation would save up and see that one person might be able to make it out, and the whole community gave, and the whole community made that there was an opportunity for that one person? You don't think that still happens today? You don't think if you go south side Chicago that there's a bunch of children that wish when they 3 years old, they hoping that they don't have to go ahead and be shooting up this and doing this and blah, blah, but some of them have to because that's what they're going to have to go through? You ever thought about that? You ever thought about how many, you know what I'm saying? You ever thought about that? How many black persons in Southeast DC are hoping and praying that they're growing up and they're like, man, I don't want to go through this stuff. I wish I can get out, but they got to be able to survive. So they do what they got to do. You think you're the only one? You know how many persons, right off South Beach, Miami, watch all these rich white folk and all these rich so-called white folk that are really just as dark as us, but they think that they too Cubano to be black, right? All right, they can't be Cubano Negro. They got to be Cubano Blanca or Cubana Blanca. Yeah, Cubano Blanca or Blanco, whatever. Please forgive me. I'm messing that up. Right, but they got to become that. You think that that's you think that there's persons who wouldn't like to stay in Mexico? And that there aren't, for every 1-2 success stories you hear about coming across the border, that there aren't 100 or so that aren't successful, and there are about 15 of those that probably don't end up the person just laying in the water, not even shot yet, just laying in the water because they couldn't make it. You think that there's persons who want to be born in an abject poverty? No, there's a system, and you sound like a white supremacist when you say that. I can tell that you've been trained in it. You went to school in it. It took me being homeless to realize, oh, anybody can be homeless. Before that, I didn't make fun of homeless persons, but in my mind, I had this rhetoric that was given to me. Well, we work hard and blah blah, and then you end up homeless. And how'd you end up homeless? Actually, I just hit hard times. Oh, okay. Well, brother, why are you? We in the shelter. Why are you homeless? Well, I hit hard times. Sure, there's some brothers that, yeah, they did some recreational stuff they shouldn't have. Sure, there's some brothers that made bad choices. Matter of fact, there's a lot of y'all that made bad choices, but you could have went to your mama's house. You could have went to your sister's house, or you had another job that happened. And really, when you look back at the choice, there had to be nothing but y'all, or you just happen to have somebody in the right position because of relationships or whatever it is. But such is life. Anybody could. That's right. You can still have a job and be homeless. Been there, done that. Was sleeping, even though I had a room, not a house, but a room that I could sleep in, right? And paid for the room and everything. I still spent many nights on elevator floors or on the bench outside or taking the bus and then, just sticking around on as many buses that I knew went 24 hours a day until I can go ahead so I can stay out the cold because I couldn't get back to the train to be able to go from Maryland back to DC. Oh, no, from Virginia back to DC, excuse me. So I traveled all around. Some nights was able to figure out how to trick the system because train operators sometimes they don't walk through the whole train like they're supposed to. So if I could lay down and act like I was going to sleep, sometimes maybe it was a whole thing that others did as well. I'd lay down, act like I was going to sleep, and a lot of times they wouldn't even check the train at the end of the night. And so I knew that train I was on, it was going to leave and come out the station about 5:30 or so. That would give me enough time to hopefully get where I need to be by 6:30. So I go ahead and I sleep on the train all night. And even though it was still cold, it wasn't as cold necessarily as not being on the train. you know, like, and I'm working at that point two jobs, two and a half technically. Yeah, you get tired. It's not because I wasn't trying. I worked 2.5 jobs. Being promised all these promotions and all this stuff. If I just hold on, I hold on. If I just hold on, if I just hold on, if I just hold on. And somebody out there is probably thinking to themselves, man, he lazy. Look at him. He getting paid minimum wage. He on blah blah. Like I'm trying. I'm too look, you work 2.5 jobs. You too tired to look for work. Right? And then you miss on stuff. I worked like that tirelessly, and I was in the military before that. I had from 17 years of age until I got out the military, and then once I got out the military, went and was on unemployment as long as I wanted to be honest, for about 6 months. And then when my 6 months was just about up, I went and I got a job and got a better job, and then I was able to hold that job. Ended up having some bad stuff happen in life. Went back, was with my father, was on his couch, didn't want to stay there because I felt guilty because I'm like, I'm having this grown man taking care of his grown son. And I know the way that I was raised, that's not something that I was supposed to do. I feel like I'm letting them down. I try to get back on the streets. Or right, and I took myself on the streets. I found a shelter. I came back to DC. I was like, let me try and figure this out. Get a couple jobs here or there. I'm even working for churches and stuff like that. I'm literally losing my mind and having spells where I am I'm just imagining things. Can't even help it. Like I don't know what's real and what's fake at times, and hoping that I'm not having one of those episodes in front of customers and stuff, so I don't lose one of the 2 jobs that I got at restaurant. Right? Had a vehicle gets taken because I couldn't afford to pay for it anymore. Somebody broke into it, bust the windows out my car, right? And I'm sitting up there, I can't even really sleep in the vehicle because I couldn't really get the glass up the way that I needed to. So I'm trying my best to sleep in the vehicle as much as I can. Had a nice little minivan, all that stuff. Can't even sleep in the way I want. Eventually it gets taken. Like but I'm still as far as and it was interesting. I told somebody I told somebody pretty much when I was starting to come out of it that I was in that position, and they said, and the brother was like, yo, I never even seen that on you. In other words, like I'm working and working. How you doing, Iron? I'm working and working and working and working and working, and I'm doing stuff, and I'm still grinding, and I'm doing whatever I can to present myself and try. And so nobody could even tell, or a lot of person couldn't tell unless you knew me and you knew my personal stuff, and I was letting you in on seeing me still having that big, sea bag. We call it a sea bag in the military for the Navy, but y'all know what I'm talking about, the big green bag if you've been in the military. And I'm carrying that, but persons don't even know that I'm carrying 2 of them jokers, and I'm hiding one here in this part in this state, and I'm hiding another one in this state, hoping that nobody messes with them. So when I need to go to this place, hopefully, and a couple times my bags get taken, I got to buy a whole nother one. And during all that time, a lot of persons don't even know. Matter of fact, the persons that I was working for, even though they knew I was dealing with the whole prison thing and coming out of that, and they helped me out immensely with that. I praise y'all for them. But the person who knew I was coming out of that didn't know I was homeless until one night I couldn't take it anymore. And I used to close down the restaurant. I closed down the restaurant. I go to the back while the alarm's going on, and I went to sleep in the bathroom, and they happened to see me on camera. I had to stay in the bathroom the whole night because if you're out anywhere within, the alarm's going to go off. So I don't want them to hear the alarm going off because the owners of the restaurant are going to be made aware if the alarm's going off at like 3 a.m. or even if nobody's made aware when they wake up and they see, wait a minute, there was an alarm that went off and somebody shut it off. Who would have shut it off? Right. So when I turned the alarm system on, you're supposed to hurry up, rush out, lock all the doors and stuff, and then be out of there. Instead, I would lock everything up, and then I would go into the bathroom. In one of the nights, the owner apparently had talked to the manager, Sister Sabrina. She's great people. And Sabrina came and she was like, "Is everything okay?" And I just started crying because I knew she wouldn't be asking me that if she didn't notice that I was, after I finished cleaning everything up, and she thought I was just staying late to make sure. But come to find out, staying late because I was making sure everybody else was gone. Once they were gone, right, I would act like I was locking everything up, but real talk, I was actually making sure I had a place to sleep on the bathroom floor because that's the best I could do. Right. And so there'll be, you see what I'm saying? But there's a system out there that has you and I thinking that that joker's a loser. And I was literally doing everything in my power to keep my sanity. And right after that, when I told y'all I went to the fourth floor, then I eventually I couldn't take it anymore. Had to go to the psych ward and had to deal with myself for the first time, really deal with like nothing but me. Like I didn't have to worry about preaching. I wasn't worried about teaching. I wasn't worried about going to a job. I wasn't worried about no babies. I wasn't worried about, is there a possibility of me ever being in a relationship again? I wasn't worried about how are people looking down on me because I'm wearing this uniform now and I'm used to wearing suits and ties or military garb or whatever the case might. I got a chance to just literally focus on myself. And I was still depressed. I was really bad. I was really out of it. You know what I'm saying? You said you were working and homeless. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like, so even that is a racism, white supremacy thing to where we think that because somebody doesn't look like Bill Gates or somebody doesn't look like uh, Steve Jobs, put whoever you want up there. Just because they don't look like them doesn't mean that they're not powerful and they're not going through something. There's a lot of persons when I hear me talk about it, I'm trying my best because if I start tearing up about it, I'm not trying to do the whole chauvinist thing, male chauvinist thing. If I start tearing up about it, we're not gonna make it through. Right? We still got some time to go. But I'm just saying, sometimes when I look back at it and think about it, I'm like, I don't know how I made that. And back then there were a lot of persons that, like I said, unless I told you this is what I'm going through, a lot of persons had no clue. And there were even persons where I had to try my best to keep my chastity, if you will. I mean, I had already at that point lost my virginity, but I was going back to being chaste and going back to making sure that I protected my body. And there were women that would offer me to stay over their place, and I'm thinking they're being nice, and all of a sudden, like they come out of the room in a towel, and I'm just sitting there on the couch looking around, like, and I'm like, I didn't know what's going on. Then eventually they go in the room, and then the whole night, right, sitting there thinking, should I go in the room? Should I? You see what I'm saying? And all I did, I'm thinking somebody trying to be not like, these are things we don't think about all these different things and how easily somebody could fall, and if you not, and how strong you have to be. Like, so when I'm talking to you about this stuff, I'm not saying this stuff because like I'm like, hey, I have no concept of it. Like I've been there, done some of this, not all of it, but I've been there, done some of this, and had to go through and been like tempted. He will not lead us into temptation, but you will be tempted. Right. And this system is one that will get you going through a lot of stuff. We have to be willing to acknowledge that. That's why I say see the humanity. Even if you're not pro LGBTQ plus, see the humanity in the LGBTQ plus. See there's something might have got them there. One or two decisions that you made, if they had been made differently, could be the reason why you end up like they did, as much as you say you hate them. Right? One or two reasons why that person decided to go ahead and get light bleaching stuff. As much as you hate them for doing that, one or two different things happened to you different. You could have be down the same road. That's why our ancestors used to say, but for the grace of Yah, go I. All right, I'm okay. I'm done. Testimony time's over. Whoever that blessed, that wasn't on the docket. I apologize, but hopefully that blessed somebody. Right? If I talk about that anymore, I'm not gonna make it. Salah. Right. So let's see, where are we at? Page 13. All right, page 13, last paragraph. All persons, all white persons, but all persons who directly or indirectly practice white supremacy, racism, white supremacy, are equal to each other in that practice. This is true because each individual act of racism is interrelated with all other acts of racism. This means that all white persons who practice racism, white supremacy in any form are equally as guilty as those white persons who practice racism in all forms. Racist man and racist woman, by functioning as the white nation, white supremacists collectively, and by acting to maintain, expand, and or refine the existence of racism, have more than any other creatures in the known universe violated the natural law of compensation. By doing so, they have deliberately forced and or directed all other creatures, particularly non-white people, to do the same. Persons don't like to hear this stuff, but it's real. And why we don't talk about this stuff is honestly, right? It's the same thing, right? If y'all been here, y'all probably by now everybody knows about the Diddy situation, all that, right? Have you guys heard about the Jay-Z component of that? Thank you for the love. Have you heard about the Jay-Z component of that? Have you heard about the Jay-Z component, to where basically persons pretty much knew, but now it's coming out where there's persons ready to give testimony, and there's persons who are basically saying that Jay-Z was one of the persons in one of the places that they could verify he was in, and they're looking at a woman being there. Might even quite possibly, this is alleged. All this is alleged, but this is super alleged, that the woman might quite possibly have been Jennifer Lopez when she was going out with Diddy, when Diddy was essaying a 13-year-old, I believe it was, and the other man was doing it, and there was a female that was witnessing it. It was probably, it allegedly was Jennifer Lopez, and the one that's saying alleged on wax or on court record is going to be Jay-Z, right? And so the persons that are there, right? Like Jay-Z not going to be able to say, well, I'm not Diddy, or the person, whatever woman this is, not going to be able to say, I'm not Diddy. If you are in the room and you were quiet, J-Lo been quiet, yeah. If you're in the room and you quiet about it, you part of it, right? This is why I told y'all before. Please, nobody come up to Pastor Kofi and be like, "Yo, yeah, now I'm gonna give you a chance to do it if you come in righteous, but please don't let me catch nobody, or please don't tell me y'all gonna be out here and y'all gonna be cool with going ahead and cheating, right? If you cheating, I gotta say something. That's right. Silence is compliance. So if I find out you cheating, I'm gonna come to you first. I'll be like, you need to handle that. Not just handle that as far as what you need to handle that with your family. That's on you. As long as you handle that, fine. But if I find out that you wilding on that, like you just stepping on the gas and you doing nonstop, okay, yeah, like I can't have my name attached to you anymore. Right? If I find out you did it once, you did it twice, you come to me, Pastor Kofi, I need some guidance on the blah blah. Right? I promise you. I'm not going to out you. Like, you have a chance to out yourself. Do what you need to do. Make that right. Make that righteous. Take your lumps, whatever, and keep it moving. And don't go away and sin no more. But if you're going to keep sinning, then especially if your spouse, if I know them or I know they're part of SOC, I'm sorry. I'm going to try not to publicly out you, but the word says if you keep doing what you're doing, eventually at some point we got to bring it before everybody. Right? But that's because if I know about it, I'm complicit. And this is why it's really messed up when person try to go, well, my parents never owned slaves. Okay, were they overseers? No, they weren't an overseer. See, I got you. They don't know. Okay, well, time out. Did they work in the South at all? Did they work in the North? Did they work in Massachusetts? Did they make money off of slave trade? Right? Because if they're part of the system and they ain't do anything for it, they were complicit. And we don't want to talk like that. We don't want to act like that, because that means we got to look at ourselves. You know, like one of the things I've talked about this before, where one of the things that um, I feel really bad about is sometimes the ways that we used to joan or play the dozens or make fun of persons and stuff, and especially certain sisters who I feel I might have contributed to them becoming different things. Like there's this one girl who basically, whatever, weirdo. She's a lesbian, right? And when she was younger, she was like a tomboy. I don't know if we really crushed on each other or anything like that, but we were friends. We were definitely great friends. She used to play basketball. She was pretty tall and all these different things. And one day she comes to school. She always wear jeans. She always was like kind of sagging her pants. She always was like, be like, yo, 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 this and that or whatever. And one day she comes to school and she sits down next to me and stuff. And I'm just like, and everybody is, not because she's beautiful or anything like that, even though I guess she was. I can't remember. We were little at the time, so I wasn't really thinking like that. But she was wearing a dress, like a nice. I don't remember the color. I remember it was bright, and maybe it just looked bright because I had never seen her in no dress before. And literally, the dudes start going in on her and making fun of her. They always made fun of her because she was masculine, right? Then all of a sudden, she wanted to be feminine, and they start going in. And I kind of started saying some stuff against it, but then I just stopped talking because, to be honest, I wasn't brave enough. A little boy, but it don't matter. I wasn't brave enough, right? And so they went in on her. She ran away crying. I don't know if she ever came back to that school. I think I saw her. I think she went to another middle school, another high school. That was like an elementary school. I think I saw her again when she was older. She was back to wearing the stuff. But she tried one day to come dressed like, what everybody was saying. Really, probably what she desired to dress like, and didn't have the, she wasn't brave enough to. She finally dresses up like she wants to. And it's one of the things in life, besides many things that I did. I used to be afraid of what everybody's going to make fun of me on. So I became really great at playing the dozens of joning on folk. And I could fry somebody. I still could if I really wanted to. I could fry somebody up and make them feel real bad about themselves. I used to always start with me, because I figured if somebody's going to try to joan on me, I'm going to make fun of me so bad to you that you have nothing else to say. And then I'm really going to go in on you, right? So that's that, but I've made fun of a lot of persons and stuff. And it really, and even when I stopped making fun, I still wouldn't necessarily, I finally, when I got older in high school, I finally started stepping up for persons. And even when persons would get bullied, fighting and stuff like that on behalf of persons and stuff like that. But I was a coward. I was a coward for a while. And it really sticks with me, because I could have helped out a lot of ways that probably would have helped a lot of persons. I've even gone through, when I first started getting on Facebook and stuff, I started sending messages out on Messenger to persons and apologizing to sisters, usually with sisters or girls. Then I'd be like, man, I'm sorry about this situation. That stuff weighs heavy on me sometimes, right? I know I was a little boy, and I know, finally I was a preteen at one point, and then I became a teenager before I finally started doing it. But still, like, I didn't have the courage, didn't have the training per se, and didn't feel comfortable enough in the environment. But I'm guilty. That's a sin that I had to be put, even besides them, I had to put before the Most High and be like, forgive me. I knew better, but I didn't have the courage. I did. You already said that I have courage in me, but I didn't use it. I was too afraid. I didn't fear you more than I feared them. Right? I'm supposed to reverence only you. I don't fear any man, like they say all the time. I don't fear nobody but Yah. But then when it's time to show your fear, you have. Yeah, ridiculing can be easier than being ridiculed. And so, I've learned from that. Praise Yah. But I look back at that, and I say all that to say that there are persons who will not take into account that if you saw something, like what they say in security all the time, if you see it, say it. If you seeing something but you don't say nothing about it, you're just as complicit. And really, if you see something and won't do anything about it, you're just as complicit. And persons don't want to have that part of the conversation. Oh no, I'm not this, I'm not that. Okay, fine. When you know, for the like one of the things that always gets me when Trayvon was outside in this neighborhood and persons could hear a scuffle was going on and stuff like that, and a shot went off. Like, what were y'all doing? When there were three little children outside playing, as they probably always play. You know, who was going to be around to make sure that the police officer said nothing? Why would nobody watch over children in their neighborhood? Right? We don't even think of that as being a possibility. Like, we always only go, and I know he's focusing here on so-called white persons, but we always go straight to the so-called white person and never think about us. Never think about, like, what are we contributing? What do you teach your child? Right? What have you done to set it up with father figures for your child? We got ministers on staff, on standby for these young boys. You hear what I'm saying? Like what are we doing for them? This is a community. If you need to be there on the phone call, by the way, please do. I ain't trying to be an adult talking to your child and then something crazy happened and then my name is involved or something. I ain't do nothing either. I want to be protected too. So you need to be on the phone call too. But what are we doing to set up stuff for them? When are we going to set up stuff for them? When are we going to make it hashtag a safe place? Hmm. You hear what I'm saying? And these children, they need it. Time up for who's better, men or women. Like, that stuff is done. We need both. Time out for, can't nobody tell me what to do or whatever. Yes, all of us need guidance. Time out for all that stuff. Time out for, well, that's not my mama. That's not blah, blah. Okay, but that's ours. And if they family won't take care of them, what are we going to do to make sure at least bare minimum that they know that they're loved? They need love too. But they made their choice. They made the decision. Yeah, you made a lot of bad choices too. Just because your consequences don't look like theirs doesn't mean that you don't deserve worse. That's why you guys talk about, isn't that why y'all talk about grace all the time? He didn't have to do it, but he did. But I'm not gonna do nothing for nobody else though. Some of y'all need to add that on there. When y'all say that from now on, if y'all tell the truth, some of y'all need to tell the truth. Shame the devil. From now on, when y'all say he didn't have to do it, but he did, make sure you add. But I ain't doing nothing. Just keep it all the way a buck. Keep it real. You hear what I'm saying? From now on, when you say it, some of y'all need to say, but I ain't gonna do nothing. Thank you for the love. All right. He didn't have to do it, but he did. But I ain't gonna do nothing. He didn't have to save me when I was at my worst, but I ain't gonna save nobody else. He didn't have to adopt me unto himself, but I ain't adopting no child that needs help. He didn't have to love me at my worst, but I ain't loving nobody at their worst. You need to just go ahead and say that, because you're and realize that in our code, when you talk like that, that's criminal behavior to us. We're not going to pretend that it's not anymore. That's criminal behavior, because you're supposed to love as Christ loved. An oxymoron, double-minded, etc. Right? You're supposed to love as Christ loved. Where your love at? Where's your love at? Where's your heart at? Where's your soul? Where are you at in salvaging yourself with fear and trembling? Something ain't right, beloved. That don't sound right to me. Does it sound right to you? Where's the love? Come on, somebody gonna have to just start saying that. And if you don't want to say it, then make sure you're not worthy of that being said about you. If you don't want somebody to be able to say, well, you ain't gonna love nobody, then start loving persons. If you don't want anybody to say about, because if a man can say, see, watch this. Remember, don't just start at verse 38 of Luke chapter 6. Start at verse 37, where it says, judge the way you want to be judged, and condemn the way you want to be condemned. and forgive in the manner that you want to be forgiven. For however you give that judgment and how you give that condemnation and how you give that forgiveness or don't give forgiveness, it shall be given or not given unto thee. Elocham's measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over shall men give unto your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet is how Yah will use men around you, human beings around you, to give unto you. That's right. If the child doesn't feel left in the village, he will burn. He'll burn it down for the warmth. Come on now. That's a word. All right, let's keep moving. Praise Yah. Let's keep moving. All right. Let's look at this. Let's go to page 14. First bullet point says this: the word united is used here means that the victims of racism who choose to be united are united in regards to their thoughts as to the need to resist and or eliminate racism, white supremacy. I'm gonna skip down to the last bullet point on page 14. The word code. The word code is used, or as used here, means that each individual victim of racism speaks and or acts to help eliminate racism by utilizing selections from a list of suggestions or from a combined list of suggestions designed to help an individual victim of racism accomplish that purpose. In other words, we need to have some things that are in position that can be suggested. We need to have some things written out. We need to have some videos up. We need to have some books written. How you doing, Just Shots? We need to have some powwows. We need to have some stuff where we talk to each other on a regular basis and we're able to start getting suggestions and have a list of things. We have a list, right, already called the Word of Yah. But we need to start listing things out and making sure. We need to have something that our children can go to. So when your child experiences racism for the first time, they've already been given a list that they can look at. Like, hey, when somebody does this to you, this is how you can think of yourself. When somebody makes you feel a certain way, I be talking to my child, and if somebody try to say some foolishness or some weird stuff or whatever, I come to them and I be like, yo, if so and so says this about you and so and so says that about you, you know what? You can tell them to kick rocks like this. If he playing basketball and somebody says something about him or whatever that makes him feel down, right? Like some boy was playing against him, and the boy is older, but Solomon looks older than he is, right? So the boy is older than him, so the boy is doing stuff that Solomon can't do. And I'm like, yo, well, we're gonna work on this. We're gonna go on your game, work on your inside out, work on your shot. We're working on his shots going around, right? Going around the center. He's finally getting enough strength. He can put up a little bit 3-pointers, but I want him to still focus on getting closer. Learn what your game is. You bigger than him. Learn how to do something in the post. You stronger than him. Make sure that you push him out the way if you need to. Use them bows, whatever. And when you get back on them, this is what you do. You look him in the face and you say, I'm not what you call me, you what you call me. And I won't repeat it in front of you, but I told him, hey, if that's what the boy says, because I want you to realize and recognize there's strength in you. You hear what I'm saying? Now, some of y'all might not like that tactic. It is what it is. But I'm saying I'm instilling some things in him. And I want him to see who he is. And it's okay for him to be able to say to somebody else, like, yo, this is not like you don't get to push me around the rainbow. Yeah. You don't get to push me around. Like, there's some things that I have, there's some skills that I do, right? There's a code, there's a list of suggestions. So if somebody come to you and they try to say this and try to say that or try to do that, no, this is what we do. When somebody try to come against your masculinity, this is what you do. When somebody tries to, box you or whatever, look, you know how to fight. You know that fighters who know how to fight, we can really mess somebody up. Hey, be the bigger person and lead. But if they put you in a position where you can't lead, you coming home. Do this and make sure that you do what you got to do, and I'll handle the rest. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, if we're going somewhere and we be in the hood somewhere and we know that there's a possibility they might try to jump you or whatever, know that wherever you're going, I'm always looking at you. I don't care if we at a trampoline park. I don't care if we at the basketball court. I don't care if we at the gym. If it seems like you by yourself, I promise you, you're never by yourself. Because if I have to, I don't care if you 9 years old, but you was taught as the 13, 14-year-olds, and them 13, 14-year-olds is trying to go ahead and square up 5 at a time. I promise you, Dennis, I'm going to have to whoop some 13, 14-year-olds, and we're going to whoop them together. You know what I'm saying? But there's some stuff that we have to have in place. And your child needs to feel that. This is why, once again, I'm so thankful that the children were even on with this last night. Your child needs to be part of this stuff that we're building, right? We want your children to be part of these holy days, especially starting next year. We're going to try to get some of them in for watch night service if we can. But your child needs to feel like, hey, the same way that Pastor Kofi will go to bat for Bruder Charlie, or will go to bat for Sister Marion or whatever, your baby needs to know that I'll show up for Brother Abram too. And I'll show up for Sister, forgive me, I'm having Sister, I'm trying to say Sister Sage, Sister Vega too, right? I'll show up for any of y'all. And we are persons that are online and ready to step up for any of y'all. There's not one of you that we will not make sure that we take care, because you're all our family. And we want you, and we want you to have a list of things to help you, not just only on paper, but also what you see on paper is because it works. And if you also, here's another part of paper, if you need to call, contact, some of the children even got each other's numbers. If you need to contact each other, but know that you're together. This is a family. This is not just virtual, it's reality, right? So we got to make sure that we realize that, right? That we have to make sure that there's something that everybody can see. Where, right? The word concept, as used here, means that the entire united independent compensatory code / system is no more than a concept or idea during any period when no person in the known universe is speaking and or acting to use truth in a manner that helps to produce justice and or correctness. So what we're reading basically is something that's a concept, sept being idea, con being one with, and therefore we all have the opportunity to make this better. Even if it doesn't seem like anybody's getting it, the more and more that we do this, the more and more we put this out, this can become a universal concept, right? A universal concept, right? So we would like for this to become a universal concept. This is something we're united in. We're united in this concept. That's why it's listed as a concept. All right. Let's go down to page 16. Page 16, first bullet point under the United Independent Compensatory Code / system / concept works in the following manner. First bullet point says ideas. Ideas for speaking and or acting to eliminate racism and for producing justice and correctness are listed as they come to mind. So as you come up with something, we should be listing this somewhere. We should even have a list of things that we do back and forth, ways that we can speak with each other, ways we can do things with each other. All right. The next bullet point says the list of ideas are arranged into an order or code or thought, speech, and or action that is designed to be used by an individual person. So any individual should see, because of what the society's listed, that has the same goal in mind, the same structure, and the same culture, we should be able to go to that same list as individuals, no matter what age, no matter what color, etc. All right. The individual, next bullet point, the individual person who uses parts of the code that he or she judges to be best suited for promoting justice and correctness and eliminating racism. The individual person does this by his or her own will at a time and place of his or her own choosing in any one or more listed areas of activity, namely the 9 that we talked about earlier: economics, or we talked about yesterday: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The individual, next bullet point, the individual person may or may not add refinement to the code by making his or her own additions or modifications to it. In other words, those who are learning, those who are coming through it, those who use it, they'll probably learn some things. We might as well allow them to have space to where it can be introduced to see if we all agree, should we add to the code the way that you've gone through your experience says. Right, whatever your experience says as a youth, right? This is how you get the youth and the elder to come together. The elders, let's teach you what's going on. Let's show you this stuff. This is what we say. This is our culture, etc. And then you who are coming in, you should have the right to be able to say, okay, I see how this works, da da da. But when I do this, or when I go here, or when I'm listening to this, or when I'm with my friends, or when I'm at school, these are some things that are coming up. Maybe we should look at this list being modified a little bit to ensure, like, we don't have to take away from the essence, the law of it, right? We shouldn't modify the word. But for example, right, it's like when it used to be. So, for example, it used to be unholy for somebody to have any instruments in your church. Then it was unholy to have any instrument in your church. Certain churches, you couldn't have any instrument in it. Black churches couldn't have any instrument in it, but a bass drum. Then you could have a bass drum, maybe a tambourine. Then after that, it was really bad for you to have anything other than maybe a piano could be added. Then all of a sudden, somebody said, let's put an organ in there, an organ. Yeah, let's put an organ in there. Now you can't imagine it without an organ. Then all of a sudden, it was bad to make sure that it was sounded to what do we call it? And there's a truth to this, but I don't think we should do this with the style of music. But what is it, y'all? Too secular, right? And then it went from that to, okay, it sounds too secular. Now you shouldn't rap, all right? You shouldn't do this. But guess what? Like, no, as long there's certain things we should make sure that we hold as far as holy, All right, how you doing, Sister Shirley? There should be certain things, and I saw the live session today. I saw a little bit of it. Hopefully, all is well. I saw you had the comments turned off, so I was trying to say hello. But well done. I see you being diligent with that. But yeah, so these are different things like we have to recognize and realize. Like, a person should be able to come and give suggestions. We can still sing about Yah, and somebody can rap, or somebody can sing, or somebody can have it where it's in a so-called R&B style, as if R&B style is not really a thing, but whatever. If you know music, you know what I mean. Ultimately, R&B is not exactly what we think it is, right? But persons just hold things to what they want. But we should make sure that we're diligent in keeping the law, but at the same time, it's okay for others to bring other ideas to the table. All right. Let's go down. Let's go down some. Let's see. Give me a second. Okay. Give me a second. We're going to scroll down a little bit. Let's go to page 20. We can go to page 20 if you have it. This is out of the book that I'm using. All right. So I know there's another edition. Hopefully you got the same pages and stuff. But I'm going to page 20, where it says 3 basic types of people in the known universe. 3 basic types of people in the known universe. All right. Number 1, white people. Number 2, non-white people. Number 3, white supremacists, or in parentheses, what you would call racist. So can you see here in the book, it's not about just white or black. 3, especially for this prism, right? This prism we're going through, we're dealing with basically just putting everybody into 3 categories, just for the prism that we're using. All right. 3 types. Number 1, white people. Number 2, non-white people. Number 3, white supremacists or racists. So just because you're so-called white does not mean that you are a white supremacist. Did you catch that? All right, here's the explanation. First group, number 1, white people. And we're going to be using these terms for the next few weeks, next couple of weeks, few weeks, whatever it is. So number 1, white people are people who classify themselves as white and have been classified as white, accepted as white by other people classified as white, and who generally function as white in all of the 9 major areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Okay? So the way the world is set up through the lens of racism, white supremacy, is if you white, and he's saying here, white, they classify themselves as white, somebody else classifies them as white, they live as white, whatever the case might be, that means you can even pass. So even white don't mean exactly what you think it means, right? And I'm not saying, once again, I believe that there's times when passing actually works for black folk. But that being said, for just for the prism of this book, okay? Number 2, non-white people, right? So number 1 was what? White people, which means you're called white. You're classified as white. You classify yourself as white. You have gotten benefit from being white, et cetera, okay? White, not necessarily meaning even a color per se, but it means a color, a shade, if you will, but it means how you're treated ultimately, if you get what he's saying, right? But that's not the same as a white supremacist. All right, number 2, non-white people, which is basically everybody else who's not white, almost. But let's go. Number 2, non-white people are people who have been classified as non-white and or generally function as non-white in their relationships with each other, and with people classified as white in all of the 9 major areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. In other words, when we consider somebody to be non-white, we don't even interact with them the same, do we? Anybody, by the way, even if it's your boy or your girl and they don't act white, right? But they act what you consider to be non-white. It's not even using the term black here, if you notice. Have you noticed that? That will pop up here or there, but he's not even using the term black. He's not using the term African American, right? Not, at least not that readily. Not that often, right? He's saying that non-white are treated different than white. This is why, once again, this is through the prism of racism, white supremacy. That's why a lot of you guys will hear somebody speak and you guys will hear them go, "Oh, you sound white." See, in your mind, you're not even thinking about that, but you'll even go, "Oh, you sound white." You'll make some fun of somebody. I used to get made fun of because I sounded white. I learned how to code switch. First time I learned how to code switch was when I was in elementary school. Not elementary school, because if I said elementary, right, elementary. So if I was in a proper setting for when I need to hit elementary, I started saying elementary. But then I couldn't say elementary around black folks because they'd be like, "Say that again? You mean elementary, right? What you say? Ambulance? No, ambulance." right, right. That was so. So I had to code switch because not. It didn't even have nothing to do with my color. It was how you acted. Boy, Kofi, you acting white out here. You know what I'm saying? What you acting so white for? What you saying it like that for? Who you try to impress? But when it was time, to get that A, or it was time to make sure that my teacher was proud of me, I knew how to code switch. And you get made fun of it later. You see what I'm saying? How you doing, Linus? All right. Number 3 is the white supremacists, who are the racists. So remember, there's white. So remember, there's white. Excuse me. There's white. There's non-white, and then there's white supremacists, or what you call racists. They are people who classify themselves as white, but what's the difference? And who generally function as white, and who practice racial subjugation based on white, non-white classifications. So the white person can still be doing things that is upholding white supremacy, but they themselves are not, watch this, they're not practicing racial subjugation based on white, non-white classifications. You can still be in the system, right, but not be the persons who are leading and writing out the law and the rhetoric of the system. Okay, right? So they use what? Racial subjugation based on white, non-white classifications against people classified as non-white at any time, in any place, in any one or more of the 9 major areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And we're going to start talking about those tomorrow. Even though it's Saturday, and Saturdays are usually quick for us because we got to get ready for the podcast and Shabbat service on Saturdays. But that's what we'll deal with tomorrow, is dealing with those 9 areas: economics, education, entertainment. Excuse me, got something in my eye. But we'll deal with those. Sorry, excuse me. We'll deal with those 9 tomorrow. Aman. We'll deal with those 9 classifications. What are those 9 classifications again? Those major areas that we say racism, white supremacy is in everything, including especially these 9 major areas. These 9 major areas are economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And just to kind of give you a little hint at what we're going to talk about, a little bit of what we mean, because somebody might be like, "Well, what do you mean, blah, blah." So we're going to be coming out the book. We're going to start at page 20 tomorrow. Somebody please hold me accountable to that, by the way. If I start off somewhere else, please make sure that we're starting off at page 20. But tomorrow, so area 1, for example, the beginning of it tells you that economics, this is what it means, which means the correct distribution of and or balance between all animals, persons, places, plants, things, etc. Economics in the correct sense is the sum total of all thought, speech, and or action. You see that? So when we're talking about economics, we're not talking about what a lot of persons think. Think about what was just said. It's the distribution and or balance. That means the weighing out of stuff, right? Between all animals. Even animals are affected by a system that's messed up. Did you know that? Have you ever thought about the fact that the economics of society, your ecosystem, has even gotten to a place to where so many animals don't exist anymore? right? Like we only think about this system as far as dynamics that happened in your childhood or what's growing up or what you read about racism, etc. I see you, Chris. Yeah, right. Like the even animals, you are affected by sin, right? When Adam and Eve sinned, even animals had to deal with that. When the flood happened, even animals had to deal with that. I know you don't. I know we don't think about it. Like even like the ecosystem is part of economics. Economics, the ecosystem, even is dealing with stuff. Water levels rising and going down. Right, ice caps melting. Right. If you want to say everything's fine in the world, okay, fine. If you want to say global warming is fine, but guess what? There's a lot of stuff that happens because of man. Even them trying to deal with the mosquito problems, and they put those mosquitoes out there that they genetically modified, and they were supposed to stop the mosquito problem, but now did nothing but enhance it. You know what I'm saying? Right? We have a responsibility. Adam was supposed to keep the garden. We are supposed to keep the earth. Matter of fact, one of the things that we have a task, a job now, a toil that we were never supposed to have, but we're supposed to we gotta have it now at least until everything goes back to what it was supposed to. When it's salvaged, one of the tasks was supposed to make sure that we till the ground. You know? If we don't till it right according to the will of Yah, then the ground gonna be messed up. Everything gets affected. So anyway, so we're done for today. Tada, Yahasdel, thank you so much for being with us. I will see you guys. We're gonna still be doing our Zoom thing. Please check it out for the link on Patreon at my name, Kofi Ofori. If for some reason you cannot get it through there or whatever, I'm going to try my best as we did yesterday to try and text it and send it out to everybody that I can, but look for you Google Calendar invite and stuff as well. But it'll be on social media and different platforms for you to find. But we'll be starting at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time, going over day number 2, the with the 12 Myths of Christmas. Everybody of all ages is invited, and we'd love to have more questions, comments, or concerns. We'll do that from like 6 to 7, maybe 7:30ish, every day through the 24th, and then later this evening, we'll be on at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. And if I don't catch you then, tomorrow we'll be on the live session starting on page 20, getting into these 9 areas that are talked about and doing a lot more reading page by page. So we'll do a lot more turning tomorrow, page turning. Prayerfully, you guys are taking time out to read this book in its entirety. It'll make a lot more sense to you once you do so. And also, too, don't forget tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern New York time that we will be having a quick SOC community meeting. So hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully you take care. We honor you. We honor your commitment. We honor what Yahavah is doing. Prayerfully, you're seeing this series. And even though we know there's some things that are not exactly what we believe, prayerfully, you're seeing why there are parallels and different things we need to deal with, especially when we're talking about coming out of Deuteronomy 28:15 through 68 mentality. Praise Yah. All right. Thank you so much. If you'd like to sow a seed as well, feel free to go ahead and sow a seed. You can do so through seen in different various places that we have it set up where you can give a donation if you like in the description with these videos or even on the channels see in the description, what is it, bio place, and also where it says website if you're on TikTok or if you're on Clapper as well. So thank you all so much. Appreciate, love you. Hopefully we'll see you 6 p.m. Eastern New York time tonight. And we hope that you guys do well. Safe travels to all. Pray for us. We'll be traveling on the road. Keep Sister Marion in your prayers. Hopefully we'll have a great report for you guys very soon. Thank you all for being on. We appreciate, love you. Prayerfully, those sisters that are in North Carolina, please don't forget about Sister Deja. Hopefully you guys have been staying in connection and contact with her and praying for her and letting her know. And some have been reaching out. So love you all to life. You guys take care. We're going to continue to do great things and move in a righteous direction. Don't forget that this is still a year where we #expect the blessing. Just because there's only a few days left doesn't mean that there's not a blessing left, right? So #expect the blessing, #finish strong, and let's get ready for #a safe place. December 28th is coming up. December 31st is coming up. You guys keep looking for all that stuff and know what time it is when it's time to get ready for it. We love you all to life. You guys take care. Continue to do great things. Be safe. Keep looking out for stuff to be posted on different platforms, especially on Patreon. You've been seeing a lot of stuff pop up there, and there's a lot more stuff that's still on the back end. I'm still trying to get all these holy days from this year, some videos posted for you guys pretty soon as well, too. So we're excited. Y'all's doing a lot of great things. And we love y'all to life. You guys take care. Don't forget the 5 to 10 popping up on Sunday. And by the way, this Sunday is going to be Q&A. So if there's questions, comments, or concerns that you guys feel like I haven't been getting to, or there's just other things of anything, doesn't just have to be only about Neely Fuller Jr. and this great book, the United Independent Compensatory Code /system/concept. But if you have different questions, comments, or concerns you'd like us to go over, be ready on Sunday. Love y'all to life. You all take care. Don't forget also to this Saturday, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern New York time, we're going to do a special thing just for you all on Zoom on Zoom to kind of get us ready for when we start doing second Saturdays next year. And Elder Am and I'll be on to talk about things concerning marriage. So we'll be doing something extra. We did lust last week. I forget what the topic of discussion is for tomorrow, but we'll be doing something similar and speaking on that. And maybe opening up a little bit of stuff for questions, comments, and concerns. And really, I think it's just going to be about questions in general about what the Bible says about marriage. So please, if you guys want to be on for that, that'll be on Zoom tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern New York time. Other than that, love you all to life. You guys take care. Please, please, please take care of yourself. Brother Craig will be praying for you as well. Please, please, please take care of yourselves and make sure that you can always afford to do what y'all wants you to do. So if y'all need you to take care of your body, take care of your body and do all those great things. But we love y'all to life. You guys take care. I'll be checking on you guys as much as I can throughout the day. Also, 2 minutes of Samaya LeRae has been popping up with some stuff on TikTok, so let's support her. Please pray for Sister Carla, who should be back with us, but has some issues with her phone. She has moved to Tennessee, I believe, safely. So prayerfully, you guys keep them in prayer. A lot of stuff going on with y'all. Y'all are so awesome. Just continue to pray for each other. We love y'all to life. Take care. And as always, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. Yahavah Elohim. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. So thank you all for being on. Love y'all to life. You guys continue to take care and do amazing things. There's so many different things that you guys do, and just your presence, even alone, a lot of times gets me going for every day. So I really love y'all and appreciate y'all. And from our family to yours, we hope that you always remember that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family, peace. Take care. For those of you that are still with us, as we get ready to do our shout out, just you can